I transmigrated into a novel where everyone's future was decided by the god they served, and I chose the forgotten goddess everyone called useless. But I was the only person who knew she was the true goddess of fortune. In this world, every adult had one chance to throw an offering into a divine well, pray before a god statue, and hope that God accepted them into a faction. Most people stayed rank 0 forever. A lucky few reached rank 1. Rank 2 was already rare, and rank 5 was the highest level any modern human had ever reached. So when every rich candidate lined up to worship Orion Drake, the famous god of fortune, I walked past his golden statue and searched for a goddess with no followers, no priest, and not even a proper shrine. Everyone laughed when they saw the name I chose, Aelia of the First Step. To them, she was a nursery goddess, a blessing for toddlers, beginners, and people too pathetic to earn the attention of a real god. But I remembered one sentence from the novel that no one in this world seemed to understand. Gold was not fortune. Gold was only what remained after fortune had already turned. When I first woke up as Dorian West, I did not feel like a man chosen by destiny. I felt like a guy who had lost a fight with a hardwood floor. My face was pressed against cold boards. My mouth tasted like blood and stale instant noodles. My right hand was wrapped around a cracked phone with one ugly notification glowing on the screen. Faction trial registration. 3 days remaining. Below that was my bank balance. $18.42. I had transmigrated into a supernatural novel, and my starting equipment was a headache, a dying phone, and enough money to buy lunch if I had no self-respect. Beautiful. I pushed myself up and nearly knocked over a stack of unpaid notices on the coffee table. Rent warning, utility warning, academy warning. The same name was printed on all of them. The notices agreed on the basics. Dorian West, 18 years old, unblessed, lacking a registered faction, a family sponsor, and an active divine mark. In this world, that was not just embarrassing, that was social execution with paperwork. The memories came in broken chunks, mine, his, and the novel's plot, all crammed into my skull like someone had dumped 3 hard drives into a blender. I remembered dying. I remembered reading the novel. I remembered this city. And I remembered that Dorian West was not the hero. The real protagonist was Carter Blaine, the golden boy, the chosen one, the man who would eventually kneel in front of Orion Drake, receive a blessing from the famous god of fortune, and rise so fast that every rich family in America would start pretending they had supported him from the beginning. Very inspiring. Unfortunately, I was not Carter Blaine. I was the broke idiot 3 days away from the faction trial with $18 and a body that looked like it had survived on vending machine crackers and bad decisions. I dragged myself to the bathroom mirror. The guy staring back at me had tired gray eyes, messy black hair, a bruised jaw, and the haunted expression of someone who had just realized rent was due in 2 worlds. I touched the cut near my mouth and winced. Apparently, the original Dorian had collapsed after getting shoved outside a trial prep center the night before. He had not been murdered or poisoned, he had been humiliated hard enough that his body gave up and handed me the keys. Rude, honestly. My phone buzzed again. Mandatory candidate orientation, Central Divine Cathedral, attendance required for unclaimed adults. There it was, the first step toward either a divine future or a lifetime of being politely treated like trash. The Central Divine Cathedral sat in the middle of downtown like a bank had married a temple and given birth to a golden fortress. Marble pillars, glass towers, security drones drifting above the entrance. A massive statue of Orion Drake stood over the front plaza, one hand holding a coin, the other resting on a book of contracts. Subtle. Hundreds of candidates filled the plaza. Some wore tailored suits, some carried velvet boxes, some had family priests walking beside them, whispering last-minute prayers like divine customer service representatives. Then there were people like me, cheap shoes, worn jacket, no sponsor badge, offering pouch so light it was basically decorative. Near the stairs, a woman clutched a silver bracelet in both hands while her son stood under a scanning arch. The boy looked about my age. His face was pale, his lips pressed tight, trying not to cry in public. A cathedral clerk took the bracelet, placed it into a golden tray, and lowered it into the offering well beside the entrance. The well glowed for half a second, then went dark. The scanner above the boy's head chimed. Rank 0. The mother made a sound I still remember. Not a scream. Something smaller and uglier, like her chest had caved in. The clerk did not even blink. Next candidate, he said. 2 guards guided the boy away when he tried to step back toward the well. He did not fight them. Fighting would have made it worse. Everyone knew that. In this world, a god ignoring you was painful. Making a scene after a god ignored you was social suicide with extra seasoning. That was the first real lesson Dorian West's memories gave me. The gods did not need to reject you loudly. Silence was enough. Inside the cathedral, the air smelled like incense, polished stone, expensive perfume, and desperation. 7 main halls branched out from the central atrium, each dedicated to a major faction. The Golden Dominion's hall was the largest, of course. It had a line so long it curled around a marble fountain shaped like falling coins. Other halls belonged to healing, war, law, storm, and death, but almost everyone kept glancing toward Orion's golden doors, because fortune meant money, contracts, better housing, better schools, better doctors, better everything, or at least that was what people believed. I moved with the unclaimed candidates toward the registration floor. A wall of screens listed trial slots, recommended offering tiers, faction acceptance statistics, and recent blessing results. A sponsored candidate from the Golden Dominion had received rank 2 last week after offering a family deed, 3 corporate shares, and a blessed gold relic. The crowd treated it like holy weather. I looked at my $18.42. Yeah, I was going to need a different strategy. West? The voice came from behind me, bright and smug enough to make my eye twitch. I turned and saw Blake Harrington. I knew him from Dorian's memories before I knew him from the novel. Rich family, Golden Dominion loyalist. Hair styled like he tipped his barber in blood diamonds. Smile sharp enough to file taxes with. He looked me up and down, lingering on my old shoes and the cracked phone in my hand. Blake said, "I thought you dropped out after last night." There it was. Bruised face, cheap clothes, no sponsor badge. He did not need to know my bank account to smell poverty. Rich kids develop that sense early. It is like echolocation, but for people they want to step on. I gave him a tired smile. I tried, but suffering builds character. That is what I am advertising anyway. His friend Trent Bishop snorted behind him. Trent was bigger, louder, and had the thoughtful expression of a man who believed doors were puzzles. Blake's gaze flicked to my empty offering pouch. "You're really registering?" Blake asked. "With what? Loose change and a heartfelt apology?" A couple candidates nearby laughed. I wanted to say something clever. Instead, my stomach growled. Timing. Beautiful. Trent laughed harder. "Damn, West, even your organs are begging." I looked at him and said, "At least one part of me has ambition." That got a few surprised chuckles. Not a victory, more like slapping a bear with a napkin, but I took what I could get. Blake raised a polished black case in one hand. Inside, resting under glass, was a small golden scale engraved with Orion Drake's symbol. "My family prepared a proper offering," he said. "A prosperity relic from a registered Golden Dominion auction. Certified. Blessed. Appraised." He paused to make sure everyone saw it. "Some of us take our futures seriously." I looked at the relic, then at the line of rich candidates holding boxes just like his. Velvet. Gold. Silver. Contracts. Property deeds. Little piles of inherited advantage dressed up as devotion, and that was when the system of this world became brutally simple. The poor offered sacrifice, the rich offered inventory. And somehow, everyone called it faith. A bell rang across the atrium. A priest in a gold-trimmed coat stepped onto a raised platform beneath Orion's statue. His voice carried through the speakers, smooth and practiced. "Candidates, today you stand before the divine order. Your offering is your proof. Your prayer is your request. Your chosen God is your future." He lifted his hand toward the golden hall. "Choose wisely. A strong faction can raise you. A weak faction can bury you." The crowd murmured in agreement. The priest continued. "Once accepted, your faction mark binds you to one divine path. No candidate may serve 2 gods. No candidate may change patrons without release, severance, or death." That last word was delivered very calmly, which somehow made it worse. One god, one chance, one future. That was the rule. And because everyone knew the rule, everyone rushed toward the same few famous gods. Popular gods had followers, offerings, prayers, recognition. Their names were carved into law, money, medicine, war, and media. Forgotten gods had nothing, which meant most people thought forgotten gods were weak because they were useless. I remembered a different possibility. Maybe they were weak because everyone had stopped feeding them. A screen near the altar flashed with tomorrow's featured candidates. Names, sponsor tags, predicted faction matches. One name caught my eye. Carter Blaine. He had no rank yet, no official blessing, just a clean profile photo and a note that he had been recommended for Golden Dominion review. There he was. The novel's golden boy before the gold. For one brief, stupid moment, I considered copying him. Why not? I knew the future. I knew Orion's faction would dominate the early arcs. I knew the Golden Dominion had money, status, protection, and enough smug confidence to power a small city. Then, I looked at Blake's relic. I looked at the rejected boy sitting by the exit with his mother's empty hands shaking around nothing. I looked at my own offering pouch. Orion Drake had thousands of candidates today alone. Rich ones, sponsored ones, People bringing enough gold to make my entire apartment look like a trash can with plumbing. If I prayed to him, I would be another broke idiot throwing pocket change into a well already drowning in diamonds. Hard pass. The orientation ended, and candidates rushed toward their chosen halls. Blake passed me with Trent at his shoulder, both heading straight for Orion's golden doors. Blake glanced back and said, "Try not to embarrass yourself too badly, West. Some gods hate cheap offerings." I answered, "Good thing I'm not shopping for a god with expensive taste." He laughed because he thought I was coping. To be fair, I was coping. I was coping professionally, but my feet turned away from the Golden Hall. Dorian West's memories told me the old church registry was on the second floor, where candidates could search minor shrines, retired divinities, household gods, and other divine leftovers no one with a decent sponsor would touch. The place was almost empty. An old clerk sat behind a glass divider, half asleep beside a terminal. He looked up when I approached, saw my lack of sponsor badge, and immediately looked bored again. "Minor registry?" he asked. "Old registry," I said. That made him pause. His eyes flicked over me again. "Cheap clothes, bruised face, no relic case, no family priest, no reason to be asking dangerous questions." "Old registry requires candidate authorization," he said. I held up my phone with the orientation pass. "Unclaimed adult, trial in 3 days." He sighed like I had personally damaged his afternoon. Search terms? My mouth went dry, because this was the moment, the first real step off the road the novel wanted me to follow. I could still turn around. I could still go downstairs, stand in Orion's line, offer my pathetic little savings, and pray the famous god of fortune noticed me for half a second. Maybe I would get rank 1. Maybe nothing. Maybe the well would go dark, and I would become another quiet failure escorted away by guards. Instead, I leaned toward the terminal and typed the words I remembered from the novel's forgotten margin. "First path." The clerk frowned. The screen flickered. For a second, nothing happened. Then the search results collapsed into a single restricted file buried under 3 layers of inactive shrine records. The clerk stopped chewing his gum. A location appeared first. Lower cathedral level, sealed corridor, unmaintained chapel. Then the file name began loading, 1 letter at a time, like the registry itself did not want to say it out loud. Aelia of the first step. And beneath her name, where a divine title should have been, the terminal displayed only one warning: no active followers recorded. The clerk looked at me like I had just asked directions to a grave. "Kid," he said, voice suddenly less bored, "nobody worships that one." I smiled even though my hands were shaking. "Yeah," I said. "That's the point." The clerk printed the access slip like he was handing me a death certificate with better formatting. A thin strip of gray paper slid under the glass. On it were 3 cheerful little words: Lower Cathedral Access. Below that, the registry added a warning in red ink: unmaintained divine site, no staff assistance guaranteed. Perfect. Even the building was telling me that if I died down there, it was going to be my problem. The clerk leaned back and gave me one last look. He seemed tired rather than angry or worried, like he had watched too many idiots mistake desperation for inspiration. He said, "Once you enter a shrine path, the cathedral records it. If you offer and she accepts, you understand what that means, right? 1 god, 1 faction. No takebacks unless someone cuts the mark out of you or you die." I folded the access slip and walked away from the old registry. Every step toward the lower cathedral felt heavier than the last. The Golden Hall was still behind me. Safe, bright, popular, expensive. Orion Drake's Hall had music, priests, velvet ropes, rich families, and enough gold to make a dragon file taxes. Aelia's path had a gray access slip, a warning label, and me. Stunning lineup. I had just reached the side stairwell when someone called out behind me. "West, naturally." Blake Harrington stood near the registry arch with Trent Bishop beside him, still carrying his polished relic case. Blake's eyes dropped to the paper in my hand. "What did you find?" he asked. "Privacy." Trent laughed. "He found a janitor's staircase." Blake stepped closer and caught enough of the printed name before I could hide it. His smile widened. "Oh, this is beautiful." That was never a good sentence from Blake. Blake lifted his voice just enough for the nearby candidates to hear. "Dorian West is going to worship Aelia of the first step." A few heads turned. One guy opened his candidate app, searched the name, and snorted when the result loaded. Trent leaned over his shoulder and read aloud. "Minor domestic blessing. First attempts, beginner guidance, childhood milestones." He looked up at me, grinning. "Bro, are you praying for help learning how to walk?" The laughter spread fast. The sound was small and mean, the kind of ripple crowds make when someone is about to be crushed. Blake tapped his relic case with one manicured finger. "I have to admit, West, I underestimated you," he said. "Most desperate candidates at least throw themselves at a real god. But you? You found a goddess for toddlers." "She has a shrine," I said. She has a file, Blake corrected. Dead things have files. That one landed harder than I wanted it to, because he was not completely wrong. The registry showed no active followers, no priest, no staff, no current offerings. In this world, followers fed gods, prayers anchored them, offerings gave them power to answer. A god no one worshipped was usually a corpse with paperwork, no matter how badly I wanted a sleeping dragon. I tightened my grip on the access slip and started down the stairwell. Blake followed. Trent followed too, because Trent looked like the kind of guy who would follow a fire alarm if someone said there might be punching at the end. By the time we reached the lower cathedral level, I had an audience. A sealed corridor waited at the bottom of the stairs. It was painfully different from the marble halls above, old emergency strips flickering along the floor, a metal gate with a scanner bolted to the side, and none of the gold trim, floating lights, or choir music upstairs. Trent covered his nose. "This is where they keep a goddess?" Blake said. "No, this is where they forget one." I pressed my access slip against the scanner. For a second, nothing happened. Someone behind me whispered, "Rejected by the door. That's new." Then the gate groaned open. Rust scraped against stone. The sound rolled down the corridor like something waking up angry. Nobody laughed for a full 2 seconds. A woman's voice came from behind me. "Dorian." I turned and saw Mira Caldwell standing at the gate. I recognized her from Dorian's memories. Smart, careful, too modest to be untouchable, too visible to disappear. She had the kind of calm face teachers loved because it made them think she was responsible. Mira looked past Blake and Trent, then back at me. "Are you actually doing this?" she asked. "No, I came down here for the smell." Her mouth tightened. Not amused. Tough room. She walked closer and lowered her voice, but the corridor carried sound anyway. "Aelia is inactive," Mira said. "If she accepts you, you could be bound to a faction with no resources, no church support, no missions, no protection, and no advancement path." Blake clapped slowly behind her. "See? Even Caldwell thinks you're being stupid, and she collects charity cases like hobbies." Mira shot him a cold look. "I said risky. You supplied stupid all by yourself." She turned back to me. "You only get one path. If you want to gamble, gamble on something that can still answer." That was the problem. I thought Aelia could answer. I just did not know whether she would answer me. I kept walking. The corridor ended at a crooked wooden door with a cracked plaque above it. "Aelia of the First Step." Instead of gold, a carved statue, or a sacred flame, the door carried only a faded symbol that looked like a single footprint inside an open circle. Blake burst out laughing. "She has a foot logo!" Trent bent over, wheezing. "The divine power of baby steps!" I stared at the symbol. The footprint was what everyone noticed. Simple, weak, almost childish. But the circle around it was not decorative. It had tiny breaks in it, like roads branching outward from the step. Someone had scratched most of them away, but not all. For one breath my headache sharpened. A line from the novel surfaced again. "Every road begins somewhere." I pushed the door open. Dust covered the floor in thick gray sheets. Broken benches leaned against the wall. Dead candles sat on a side table, melted down to ugly lumps. At the far end stood a stone pedestal where a statue should have been. There was no statue, only an empty base and a dry offering, well set into the floor before it. The well was small, round, and lined with dark stone. It held no glow, incense, or trace of prayer. The rim had a dedication carved into it, but half the letters had been scratched away. I crouched and brushed dust from the edge. The visible words read, "For the first step before the road." My pulse jumped. That sounded nothing like a nursery blessing. Mira saw it too. Her expression changed, just slightly. Blake stood at the entrance, refusing to step fully inside like poverty might be contagious. "Well," he said, "there it is, the legendary shrine of almost learning to crawl." Trent walked in and kicked one of the broken benches. Wood cracked against the wall. "Careful," I said, "you might offend her." Trent looked at the empty pedestal. "Who? The invisible statue?" The others laughed. My ears burned. It felt abandoned more than evil, like someone had taken a living thing, stripped off its name, then left the body in a basement and waited for history to finish the job. I stepped to the offering well. My hand shook as I opened my pouch. Inside were a few bills, a receipt, and one old silver dollar. It was scratched, dull, and probably worth exactly $1, unless the universe had a sense of irony. I took it out. Blake noticed immediately. "That's your offering?" he asked, delighted. "A coin? Try not to faint from jealousy." Blake lifted his relic case. "Orion receives certified prosperity relics, property contracts, and gold assets. Your goddess is getting laundry money." I looked at the dry well. "Then she and I have something in common. I was about to bet my only real chance in this world on a broken shrine, a scratched inscription, and one sentence from a novel that might have been foreshadowing, or might have been the author trying to sound deep at 3 in the morning. Mira moved beside me. "Dorian," she said quietly, "if you offer here and she accepts, the cathedral will record the attempt." "I know." I pulled a blank prayer slip from the chapel's side table. Beside it sat an old offering blade sealed in a cracked glass case. I broke the case with the heel of my palm, because today had become my speed run through religious vandalism. The blade was small and silver. Mira inhaled sharply. "Blood offering?" Blake's amusement dimmed. Blood offerings were legal, but nobody casual used them. Blood meant personal risk. Personal risk meant the offering could bite back if the god rejected it hard enough. I pricked my thumb. Pain flashed bright and immediate. A bead of blood welled up. I wrote slowly because my hand was shaking. "To Aelia of the first step, to the first step before the road, to the fortune before gold, I offer what little I have." The chapel went quiet. I could still hear the drip from the ceiling, Trent's breathing, and someone shifting their shoes near the door, but the laughing stopped. That was when I became truly afraid. Mockery was easy to stand in. Silence made room for failure. I placed the silver dollar on the blood-marked prayer slip, folded the paper once, and held it over the dry well. For a second, I saw myself as everyone else saw me. A bruised, broke, sponsorless idiot offering a dirty coin to a goddess with no statue. Then I dropped it. The paper vanished into the dark. I waited. Nothing happened. The well stayed dry, the pedestal stayed empty. The chapel gave me nothing, no light, no warmth, not even a polite spark. Trent exhaled first. Then he laughed so hard he slapped the doorframe. "Oh man!" She ignored the dollar. The others joined in. Blake smiled like he had just watched my future get flushed down a basement drain. Mira looked away, and somehow that hurt worse. I stared into the well. "Come on, please!" Blake stepped closer. "Do you want me to call someone?" he asked. "Maybe the nursery goddess only answers if you cry louder." I opened my mouth. My comeback abandoned me. Because beneath his voice, beneath the laughter, beneath the drip of dirty water from the ceiling, I heard something, a small sound, clink. The laughter faltered. The coin had landed. That should have been impossible. The well was maybe 20 feet deep. The coin had been falling for far too long. Everyone stared. Then the sound came again. Clink. Farther away. As if the coin had struck stone, bounced, and fallen deeper. Mira whispered, "That well does not go that deep." The old footprint symbol on the pedestal flickered once. A thin line of black gold light crawled through the dust on the floor, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. Blake took one step back. The room forgot how to laugh. The dry offering, breathed cold air into my face, and from somewhere impossibly far below, a woman's voice rose through the dark. "Who still calls for the first step?" My first answer to the ancient voice was almost, "Me, obviously." Thankfully, terror grabbed my tongue before stupidity could sprint out of my mouth. The chapel had gone wrong in a way I could feel in my teeth. The dust on the floor stopped drifting. The cold air from the offering well wrapped around my face, my throat, my bloody thumb. Behind me, the crowd was still there, but their voices sounded muffled, like someone had shoved the whole room underwater. Blake's mouth moved. His mouth produced nothing. That was honestly the most peaceful he had been all day. I leaned over the well, trying very hard not to look like a man who was one heartbeat away from wetting himself in a sacred basement. "My name is Dorian West," I said. "I called for Aelia of the first step." The darkness below the well shifted. It shifted, like something huge had opened one tired eye. The woman's voice returned, thin and distant, but there was steel under the damage. "Aelia," she repeated, as if the name tasted unfamiliar. A small name. A broken name. Who taught it to you? That question nearly killed me. The question merely killed me, though not physically yet. If I answered honestly and said, "Hey, I read about you in a novel before I died," I had a strong feeling the goddess in the murder basement might react badly. Gods probably did not enjoy being told they were side lore, so I lied. Carefully. "I found missing pieces," I said. "The registry calls you a goddess of first steps, but the inscription says, the first step before the road. Orion Drake is called the god of fortune, but all his prayers are about gold, contracts, and profit. That never made sense to me." A faint black gold line pulsed across the floor. The voice sharpened. "You speak of fortune before gold." My stomach dropped. She had heard that part. I nodded even though I was not sure she could see me. Gold comes after the chance, after the door opens, after someone survives long enough to win. Fortune has to begin before wealth can exist. For a long second, the well was silent. Behind me, Mira's figure stood frozen near the broken benches, one hand half raised like she wanted to pull me back but could not reach through whatever pressure had wrapped around the altar. Blake had stopped smiling. Trent looked like he was trying to decide whether punching a ghost counted as self-defense. The voice asked, "Are you a priest?" "No." "A historian?" "Also no." "A liar?" I swallowed. "Occasionally." The well gave a sound that might have been a laugh if someone had buried it for 1,000 years and dug it up angry. "At least you are not foolish enough to deny it." "Tiny mercy. I would take it." The cold climbed up my arm. The cut on my thumb burned. A thin ring of black gold light curled under my skin, then vanished before it could become a proper mark. The voice said, "Your offering is poor." "Yeah," I said. I noticed. 1 coin, 1 drop of blood, 1 prayer written by a starving candidate with shaking hands. Brutal review, but accurate. The pressure around the well deepened, but the coin carried your last certainty, the blood carried risk, the words carried memory. Small things have weight when they are first. My breathing hitched. First, there it was again. This was not beginner luck or toddler help. First, the point before anything else could happen. I wanted to ask what she really was. I wanted to ask why her statue was gone, why her shrine was rotting under the cathedral, why her name felt like a torn label pasted over something much larger. But the air around my throat tightened before I could speak. The goddess whispered, "Do not pull at sealed doors with bleeding fingers, Dorian West. Some doors bite." Even divine mystery came with a warning label. Cute. I forced myself to stay kneeling. "Then give me a way to survive until I can open them properly." Another pause. This one felt heavier. "You ask for blessing. I ask for a chance." That answer came out before I planned it. The well went completely still. Then the voice said, softer, "A chance, rather than gold, victory, or safety." If I wanted safety, I would be upstairs begging Orion to ignore me politely. For the first time, warmth flickered inside the cold. It was small, barely there. But it touched my chest like a match struck in a locked room. "Orion," she murmured. The way she said his name made every hair on my arms rise. It was not simple hatred. It sounded older and uglier, like pain with a crown on it. Then, it vanished. "I cannot give what I do not have," Aelia said. "Followers no longer strengthened my path. Prayers no longer held my name. Offerings no longer filled my well. The world has forgotten the door, so the door is almost gone." That was not the answer I wanted. I wanted her to say, "Congratulations, Dorian. Here is your infinite fortune sheet. Please enjoy being rich and handsome." Instead, I got divine bankruptcy, very on brand for my life. "But," she continued, "you remembered enough to call. You risked enough to be heard. So I will give you one beginning." The black gold line on the floor shot toward me. It struck my chest without impact. For 1 second, I saw nothing but doors. They were possibilities, openings, tiny cracks in events, a man turning his head at the wrong time, a card slipping from a pocket, a lock replaced too recently, a price no one understood, a path that existed only if someone was desperate enough to step on it. Then the vision snapped shut. I fell back on one hand, gasping. A thin crescent burned over my heart, under my skin. It was too faint for a full faction mark, and too strange for the cathedral scanner to read, more like a promise written in invisible ink. Aelia's voice dropped to a whisper. "First chance." The words sank into me. "One favorable opening, one turn of the road. It will not carry you if you stand still. It will not reward cowardice. Risk something you cannot afford to lose, and the path may answer." "May?" I said. "I am forgotten, not generous. Fair, painfully fair." The cold released my throat. The black gold light faded from the dust. Sound rushed back into the chapel all at once. Someone cursed. Someone stumbled. Trent yelped like a dog had bitten him. Blake grabbed the doorframe and tried to pretend he had not almost fallen backward. Mira reached me first. She caught my shoulder before I tipped sideways into the well, which would have been a deeply embarrassing way to die after finally getting divine attention. "What happened?" she asked. I blinked at her. "Good news," she answered. Mira's eyes dropped to my chest, then to my thumb, then back to the well. "Did she accept you?" "I think she gave me a trial version." Blake recovered enough to scoff. "A drafty well and a basement echo," he said. "That is what you people are calling divine response now?" I looked past Mira at him. "You stepped back." Blake's face tightened. "Because the floor cracked." "The floor hurt your feelings?" A couple witnesses made the mistake of laughing. Blake's eyes went cold, and the laughter died quickly. He still had money, status, and a golden Dominion relic. I had a bleeding thumb and a possible basement ghost contract. The social math had not changed that much, yet. A sound buzzed against my hip. My cracked phone. The screen had lit up by itself. For one horrible second, I thought the cathedral had already flagged me for divine misconduct. With my luck, the subject line would have been, "Congratulations, you have committed heresy." But it was not from the cathedral. It was an old spam notification from a public auction app Dorian had downloaded months ago and never deleted because even his phone was too poor to give up on bad opportunities. Southside Storage Estate Auction. Tonight only. Unclaimed unit from deceased cathedral archivist. Opening bid start at $10. The message had been buried for weeks. Now it sat at the top of my screen like someone had dragged it out of the grave by the collar. A deceased cathedral archivist. My heart started beating faster. Mira read enough over my shoulder to frown. "You cannot seriously be thinking about going to a storage auction after that." "I can't afford therapy," I said. "So yes." Blake laughed again, but the sound had a crack in it now. "Beautiful. The nursery goddess sent him coupon hunting." Maybe she had. Or maybe First Chance had opened the only path I could afford. I walked out of the chapel before anyone could block me, because momentum was the only thing keeping me from realizing my knees were still shaking. By sunset, I was standing behind a chain-link fence at Southside Storage, surrounded by bargain hunters, estate scavengers, and men who looked like they could smell mold through concrete. My entire available cash after bus fare was $12.42. I had never felt more financially majestic. The auctioneer rolled open the first few units. Old furniture, broken appliances, boxes of clothes. People bid like wolves fighting over garbage. Then he opened unit C17. The crowd groaned. It looked awful. A sagging mattress, 3 cracked plastic bins, a dead lamp, stacks of damp cardboard. The kind of unit that made you want a tetanus shot just for looking at it. The auctioneer started at $10. Nobody bid. I was about to keep my mouth shut, which would have been the sensible choice and therefore suspiciously unlike my day. Then I saw the lock lying inside the unit. New. Too new. The boxes were dusty, but the lock had barely any rust. Someone had changed it recently, then abandoned the unit anyway. Behind the mattress, one cardboard box had a faded cathedral archive stamp. My chest burned. It felt less like pain and more like a finger tapping from the inside. First Chance. Naturally, the path was inside the unit that looked like a raccoon had died in it. I raised my hand. $12. The auctioneer stared at me. "Kid, opening is 10. "I know," I said. I wanted to look confident. A few people laughed. "Nobody challenged me." The auctioneer shrugged. "Sold to the kid with $12 and questionable instincts." Accurate, honestly. The moment the unit became mine, the warmth under my chest vanished. Just gone. First Chance had paid out, which meant if I had bought a box of mildew and regrets, I was officially done. I spent the next 20 minutes digging through trash while trying not to think about how I had just gambled almost everything after taking advice from a voice in a hole. Then I found the first sealed card case. Old baseball cards. Protected. Mint condition. Then a signed guitar pick in a hard-shell display. Then a roll of silver quarters. The haul would not change my life, but it was enough to make my bank account stop looking like a punchline. And behind the cathedral stamped box, wrapped in oilcloth, I found a leather ledger. The cover was cracked. The pages smelled like dust and old smoke. On the front was the same footprint inside a broken circle. My hands went cold. Before I could open it, a man in a dark green suit appeared at the mouth of the unit. He was too clean and too calm to be an auction regular, with gold cufflinks shaped like tiny scales. Golden Dominion style. He looked at the ledger, then at me. "I collect church records," he said smoothly. $2,000 for that damaged book. $2,000. For a moldy old ledger he had seen for 3 seconds. My poverty screamed yes so loudly I almost got tinnitus, but my brain, for once, did something useful. Nobody offers $2,000 for trash unless the trash can hurt them. I tucked the ledger under my arm. "Sorry," I said. "Sentimental value." The man's smile thinned. "You do not know what you have." "No," I said, backing deeper into the unit, "but I'm starting to know what you want." His eyes sharpened. For a second, I thought he might step in and take it. Then another buyer shouted for the auctioneer nearby, and the man's expression smoothed over. He slid a card onto a broken plastic bin. "If you change your mind." I waited until he walked away before I breathed, then the ledger shivered in my hands. The brass clasp clicked open by itself. Pages flipped past records, names, old shrine payments, and half-burned stamps until one page stopped under my thumb. A heading emerged in faded black ink. Property record. First Chapel of Aelia. The ledger did not just open, it accused the cathedral. Property record. First Chapel of Aelia. The page did not say inactive shrine, minor domestic blessing, or nursery goddess storage closet. It said First Chapel, with legal language, old ink, and an official cathedral stamp pressed so deep into the corner it left a dent in the paper. I stood inside that storage unit, smelling damp cardboard and dead mice, with the sudden feeling that the moldy book in my hands was worth a lot more than $2,000. The Golden Dominion broker had already disappeared between the rows of garages, which made me feel very safe. When a clean man with gold cufflinks offers $2,000 for a rotten ledger, then calmly walks away after you refuse, he is not giving up, he is choosing a better way to take it. I shut the ledger and shoved it inside my jacket. The baseball cards, silver quarters, and signed guitar pick went into my backpack. They could keep me alive for a week if I sold them fast. The ledger felt like the kind of thing that could get me killed in an alley, so naturally, I took it straight back to the cathedral. The entire bus ride, I kept one hand pressed over my jacket. Every time someone looked at me, I imagined gold cufflinks, hired thugs, cathedral security, or worse, Blake Harrington with enough brain cells to become dangerous. By the time I reached the Central Divine Cathedral, night had settled over downtown. Orion Drake's golden statue still glowed above the plaza, because of course it did. Some gods got floodlights, Aelia got basement mildew, candidates were still inside, offering season did not sleep. Too many 18-year-olds were trying to buy a future before the faction trial closed its jaws. I pushed through the front doors dirty, bruised, and carrying a stolen-looking ledger under my jacket. The old registry clerk saw me first. His bored expression cracked when I placed the leather ledger on his counter. He looked at the footprint in broken circle symbol, then at me, then back at the symbol. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "Estate auction." His eyes narrowed. "That is a church archival ledger." "Good," I said. "Then you can read it." He did not touch it right away. That made my stomach tighten. People avoided cursed objects, explosive lawsuits, and unpaid restaurant checks with that exact face. Finally, he opened the ledger. The moment his fingers touched the page, the registry terminal beside him flickered. A thin black gold line crawled across the screen. The clerk went very still. The terminal printed 2 alerts: dormant chapel record detected, candidate-linked shrine resonance detected. Then the big official verification arch behind him woke up. Its lights snapped on one by one, white, blue, then gold. The clerk whispered, "Oh hell." That was not comforting from a cathedral employee. A chime echoed across the second-floor registry hall. Several candidates turned, then more. Then the entire wrong kind of attention landed on me. The scanner spoke in a calm, artificial voice. "Candidate Dorian West, step into the verification arch." I looked at the clerk. He looked back like he was mentally resigning. "Can I say no?" I asked. The scanner answered before he could. "Refusal will be recorded as attempted concealment of divine status." What a generous policy! I stepped into the arch, the metal frame hummed around me. Pale light swept over my bruised face, old jacket, dirty hands, and the ledger on the counter. The crescent over my heart heated under my ribs. The first reading failed. The second reading failed harder. The third reading made the arch buzz like an angry hornet. People gathered fast. And because the universe has excellent comedic timing, Blake Harrington came out of the Golden Dominion Hall at that exact moment. He had a faint gold mark glowing near his wrist. A new faction mark. A small floating display followed beside him. Orion Drake, Golden Dominion. Divinity rank, 1. Candidates around him were clapping. Blake had the expression of a man who had just been kissed by destiny and was already deciding what expression to use when peasants praised him. Then he saw me inside the arch. His smile sharpened. "West?" he called. "Did the basement goddess finally give you a certificate for crawling?" Trent appeared behind him and laughed. A few people joined in, but not as confidently as before. Some of them had heard the coin fall. "Mockery is easier before the floor starts glowing." The scanner's voice cut through the room. "Unknown divinity detected." The laughter thinned. Blake stopped walking. The arch lights shifted from gold to black gold, deep and cold enough that everyone nearby leaned back. The scanner continued. "Domain classification unstable." The clerk swallowed. Mira Caldwell appeared at the edge of the crowd, probably drawn by the alert. Her eyes found mine. She did not look smug, she looked worried. That was becoming her thing. The scanner tried again. "Domain match found." The air went tight. Then the display above my head lit up. "Unknown divinity detected. Domain, first path and fortune route. Divinity rank, 3. For one beautiful second, the entire registry hall forgot how to breathe. Then it exploded. Candidates shouted. Someone cursed. Someone else said the scanner was broken. Blake stared at the display like it had insulted his bloodline. "Rank 3, Trent said, voice cracking. "From Foot Goddess?" I would like the record to show that I did not laugh. Externally. Internally, I was performing an entire parade. Blake's rank 1 tag hovered beside him, suddenly looking a lot less holy and a lot more embarrassing. I tried very hard not to look at it. I failed. Blake noticed. His face went red. "Impossible," he said. "That shrine is inactive." Mira stepped closer, eyes fixed on the scanner. Inactive gods do not produce rank 3 resonance. Then the machine is wrong, Blake snapped. The scanner chose that moment to make things worse. A second line flashed beneath my rank. Secondary blessing channels sealed. The words appeared for less than 2 seconds. Then the display stuttered. A man in a dark suit crossed the registry floor with fast, controlled steps. Gold-trimmed cathedral badge, not a priest. Administration, the kind of man who could ruin you with a stamped form and sleep well afterward. The crowd parted for him. The old clerk straightened. Director Reeve. So this was Malcolm Reeve, local Golden Dominion administrator, cathedral authority, professional smile, dead eyes. He glanced at the scanner display, then at me, then at the ledger. Something flickered across his face. His reaction was recognition, with fear underneath. It vanished fast, but not fast enough. Reeve lifted one hand. Seal the reading. The archlight snapped off. The public display went dark. A wave of protest rose from the candidates. Verification error, Reeve said smoothly. Dormant shrine resonance can produce distorted readings. No one is to circulate incomplete scanner data. Several candidates had already recorded it on their phones. So good luck with that, Director Paperwork. Reeve turned to me. Dorian West, I wiped my sweaty hand on my jacket. That is what the unpaid notices keep telling me. The room stayed painfully quiet. Reeve looked at the ledger. You seem to have recovered cathedral property. I purchased abandoned storage contents from a public auction. Church archival materials are not personal property. Then your church should stop losing them in storage units. The old clerk made a tiny choking sound. Reeve's smile did not move. That ledger may confirm that a chapel once existed, he said. It does not confirm that the shrine remains lawful, safe, funded or transferable to an unlicensed adult candidate. There it was, the trap inside the miracle. I had proof Aelia's chapel was real, but real did not mean protected. Reeve continued, loud enough for the crowd to hear. The lower site is unmaintained, structurally compromised, and attached to a deity with no active worship base. Under cathedral dormant site policy, it is eligible for decommissioning. My chest went cold. Decommissioning, I repeated. A polite word, Reeve said, for demolition, sealing, and removal from the public registry. Blake's confidence started crawling back into his face. Can they do that? I asked the clerk. The clerk hesitated. Reeve answered for him. Yes, unless a qualified claimant files a restoration bond and assumes legal responsibility for the shrine. Fine, I said. How much? Reeve's eyes settled on my dirty jacket, my cheap shoes, and the backpack strap digging into my shoulder. He already knew I could not afford it. That was the point. $900,000, he said. Filed within 7 days. The room went quiet again. 900,000. I had a backpack with some baseball cards, silver quarters, and a guitar pick. So, basically there. Blake finally smiled. Congratulations, West, he said. Your goddess got a price tag. I picked up the ledger. Reeve held out one hand. The archival record stays here. No. The word came out before common sense could tackle it. Reeve's eyes hardened. I kept going, because today seemed sponsored by terrible decisions. This ledger is evidence in an active claimant dispute. You just said I have 7 days. If you want to take the only record proving the shrine existed, file a seizure order with the iron bench. I had no idea if that would work. But Reeve paused. That was enough to tell me it was not complete nonsense. Reeve lowered his hand. 7 days, he said. After that, the lower chapel will be sealed and stripped. If you interfere, your candidate status will be suspended pending divine misconduct review. He turned and walked away. Blake leaned closer as he passed me. Better start saving your lunch money. I smiled at him. Careful. At my current pace, I might accidentally outrank your family by dessert. His jaw tightened. Petty? Absolutely. But the moment the crowd began thinning, the fear hit me properly. Rank 3, 7 days, $900,000. A Golden Dominion administrator who looked at Aelia's symbol like it had crawled out from under his bed. I took the ledger and went back down to the lower chapel before security changed its mind. The corridor felt colder than before. Aelia's door opened when I touched it. The door needed no scanner and no rusted fight. It simply clicked open. Inside, the dry well waited beneath the empty pedestal. The broken chapel looked exactly the same, but now I understood something ugly. This was not just a forgotten room. This was a throat. Aelia's last way to breathe into the world. I stepped to the well, holding the ledger against my chest. I got your chapel recognized, I said. Sort of. Bad news, it comes with a $900,000 punchline. The well stayed dark. Then a faint thread of cold air rose from below. Aelia's voice came weaker than before. If this well is buried, she whispered, my voice goes with it. My fingers tightened around the ledger. How long do we have? The answer brushed against my bloody thumb like frost. 7 days. The same number Reeve had given me? Naturally, because the cathedral and the goddess had agreed on exactly one thing. I was running out of time. Needing $900,000 in 7 days does something ugly to a man's confidence. I sat on the broken floor of the side vestry beside Aelia's main chapel, the ledger open on my knees, a backpack full of auction junk beside me, and the financial power of a raccoon with a checking account. Baseball cards, silver quarters, a signed guitar pick. So only $897,000 short. Basically solved. Through the open inner doorway, Aelia's dry, well-breathed cold air against my ankles. Her voice came faintly from the main room. Coin is not the only offering. I looked at the empty pedestal. Please tell that to Director Reeve. He seemed extremely coin positive. The cathedral named a price for stone, Aelia whispered. Not for me. That made me stop. I looked down at the ledger again. The page after the property record was not a deed. It was a list of names. The list held ordinary people instead of famous names, donors, or noble families. Elias Reed. First shop opened after fire. Maribel Torres. First child survived winter. Jonah Pike. First step taken after injury. Ruth Bell. First voyage west. Under each name was a tiny mark, the same footprint inside a broken circle, pressed beside old offerings so small they would have made Blake Harrington laugh until he swallowed his own tongue. 2 copper cents. A button. A child's shoe ribbon. A train ticket. A wedding nail. Tiny, supposedly meaningless things, except the page trembled under my fingers like those names were not dead ink. Followers? I asked. Memories, Aelia said. Some were mine, some almost were. The world scraped them away. Her voice cracked on the last word. That was when I understood the shape of the problem. Reeve wanted $900,000 because money was the language his side controlled. But Aelia had not answered me because I was rich. She had answered because I remembered the right thing with the wrong amount of money. So maybe the next offering did not need to be bigger. Maybe it needed to be deeper. I spent the next several hours hunched over the ledger like a sleep-deprived grave robber with homework. I copied every name I could read onto fresh prayer slips from the vestry's side drawer. When the slips ran out, I used the back of cathedral notices, old trial pamphlets, and one glossy Golden Dominion brochure I found near the stairs. That one felt good. For each name, I wrote what the ledger still remembered. First shop, first child, first journey, first recovery, first vow. Aelia was quiet while I worked. Sometimes the well gave a weak pulse when a name was written correctly. Sometimes nothing happened, and I had to squint at half-burned ink until my eyes hated me. Near midnight, Mira found me in the vestry doorway. She held 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee and looked like she had spent the last 3 hours arguing with herself about whether to get involved. You look terrible, she said. I am cultivating mystery. You have dust in your hair and blood on your sleeve. Advanced mystery. She came inside but stopped short of the inner doorway. Smart. Her eyes moved over the copied names, the silver quarters, the blood-stained prayer slips, and the ledger. What are you doing? She asked. Trying to save a goddess with arts and crafts. Mira did not laugh. I told her the safe version. The ledger proved Aelia had worshippers. The chapel needed restoration. Money was the legal problem, but recognition might be the divine one. I did not mention First Chance, Orion, or that I was a dead man wearing Dorian West's bad credit score like a costume. Mira listened, then set 1 coffee beside me. Reeve sealed the scanner logs, she said, but people recorded the rank 3 display. Blake is telling everyone it was corrupted basement resonance. Naturally. He also said, your goddess produces mold allergies. That part might be true, honestly. Mira crouched near the pages. If you turn those names into an offering, the cathedral will notice. Good. That was not a warning label you should lick. I looked at her. She sighed. Dorian Reeve did not look confused. He looked like he recognized something. If you make a second abnormal offering, he will move faster. I wanted to say I had a plan. Unfortunately, my plan was a stack of dead names, $7 in quarters, and optimism held together with panic. I know, I said. Mira's expression softened for half a second. Then do not do it alone! Before I could answer, footsteps sounded in the corridor above us. The footsteps were heavy, controlled, and far too synchronized to belong to candidates. Mira's face changed. I grabbed the original ledger! 3 men in cathedral maintenance jackets appeared beyond the broken vestry door. They carried no tools. Their boots were clean. One had gold-scale cufflinks under his sleeve. There it was. The better way to take the ledger? The man in front smiled. Dorian West, Director Reeve requires the return of cathedral archival property. Mira stepped beside me. Do you have a seizure order? His smile stayed polite. No. Then he stepped into the vestry anyway. So much for paperwork. I snatched the copied prayer slips, shoved them into the leather cover, and bolted toward the side aisle. Very heroic, very graceful. Also, I hit my knee on a broken bench so hard I saw 3 gods and none of them were mine. The first man lunged for the ledger. Mira grabbed a cracked candle stand and swung it into his path. It hit the stone floor with a clang loud enough to wake several dead regulations. "Run!" she snapped. I ran. A second man caught my jacket near the shoulder. Fabric tore. I twisted, slipped halfway out of it, and lost the jacket completely. For one freezing second, his hand brushed the ledger. The leather cover snapped shut on his fingers. He screamed just enough to tell me the book had teeth for people it did not like. I liked it more after that. I sprinted down the side corridor, clutching the ledger and prayer bundle against my chest. Behind me, boots hammered stone. Mira shouted something. A man cursed. The lower gate alarm began wailing. The old access slip in my pocket sparked black gold. The inner wellroom door opened before I reached it. I dove inside. The door slammed behind me with the kind of finality that made my spine applaud and my lungs resign. The men hit it from the other side. Once, twice. The old wood shuddered but held. For now. I stumbled to the offering well and dumped everything onto the floor. Names, coins, prayer slips, the old ledger. My first vow written on the back of Reeves' decommissioning notice because again, I am petty in useful ways. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the offering blade. I cut my thumb again over the roll of silver quarters. Blood marked each coin in red crescents. "I do not have $900,000, I said to the well. "I have no followers, no priest, no statue, and, thanks to those guys, no clean jacket either." The door shook behind me. "But I have names." The well went cold. I gathered the prayer slips into the leather ledger. The copied names pressed against the property record. The blood-marked coins rolled into the fold like small moons. "I offer proof that you were remembered," I said, "and I offer my first vow as your follower." The hammering outside stopped. That scared me more than the noise. I placed the remembrance ledger over the well. For a second, I hesitated, because if this failed, I was not just broke. I was trapped in a basement with angry men, a dying goddess, and enough legal trouble to make my ghost need a lawyer. Then I let go. The ledger fell into the dry dark. At first, nothing, because every divine miracle in my life seemed to need a dramatic pause. Then the names began whispering from the walls instead of the well. Elias Reed, Maribel Torres, Jonah Pike, Ruth Bell. One by one, the dead candles flared black gold. The broken footprint symbol on the pedestal split open, and around it appeared a wheel of faint marks, most of them sealed shut. One mark lit first, a falling coin. Aelia's voice rose, stronger than before and filled with pain. "If one servant remains," she whispered, "then I was not always alone." A second voice answered from somewhere above the well, bright, rough, and laughing, like someone had just kicked open a tavern door after a century outside. Finally! I was starting to think the whole court had gone bankrupt. A coin struck stone inside my chest. Clink, power flooded through me. The power was black gold instead of Orion's warm shine, sharp and moving and hungry for openings. A round mark burned beside Aelia's crescent under my skin, but it did not tear away from her. It nested inside the same path, like a smaller door opening inside a larger one. The voice said, "Mavrin Coinfall answers the first call." The chapel floor cracked outward. The men outside shouted. Somewhere above us, the cathedral scanner screamed. A public alarm blared through the lower corridor. Multiple divine signatures detected. Another alarm followed, louder. One God rule conflict suspected. "Oh, fantastic!" I gasped, clutching my chest. "The building thinks I cheated on my goddess." Alelia's voice cut through the pain. "Not separate." The falling coin mark locked into the crescent. "Mine!" The scanner's alarm stuttered. Then a new reading blasted through the corridor speakers. "Candidate Dorian West. Divinity rank updated." The door burst open. Mira stood outside, breathing hard, with 2 security guards and half a dozen candidates behind her. Retreating boots hammered up the stairs. The maintenance men had fled when the alarm brought witnesses. Blake and Trent had arrived too, because Humiliation clearly had a subscription service. Everyone looked at the black gold light pouring out of the chapel. The scanner spoke one last time. "Divinity rank, 4. The corridor went silent. Blake's face turned the color of spoiled milk. I tried to stand, failed once, then managed it by grabbing the edge of the well. The coin inside my chest rang softly, marking an opening rather than victory. Then the cathedral's upper hall exploded with shouting. Panic, not cheering. Heavy doors slammed open above the staircase. Private security flooded in first, then medics in white coats, then a hard-faced man in an expensive black suit. Behind him came a young woman with cold eyes and blood on one sleeve. Between them, on a floating medical stretcher, lay an old man whose skin had gone gray around the lips. The rich had arrived carrying death. Someone screamed, Make room for the Ashford family! The coin in my chest rang again, louder this time, and with my knees shaking and my brand new rank 4 mark still burning, I knew the next opening had just walked in bleeding. The rich do not run unless death is faster than their money. That was my first thought when the Ashford family tore through the cathedral like they owned the marble, the guards, and possibly the oxygen. I was still gripping the edge of Aelia's well, chest burning from a brand new rank 4 mark, when their security shoved candidates aside. Medics in white coats rushed after them, pushing a floating stretcher through the lower corridor. On it lay Henry Ashford. Even I knew that name. Old money, private rail lines, hospitals, shipping contracts. The kind of man whose portrait probably frowned at poor people from 3 different boardrooms. Now he looked like a corpse that had been bullied into breathing for 5 extra minutes. His skin had gone gray around the lips. Black veins crawled up his neck. Every few seconds, his chest jerked like something inside him was cutting another string. The hard-faced man in the suit was Graham Ashford, Henry's son. He walked beside the stretcher with one hand clenched around the rail. "Where is Monroe?" Graham snapped. The young woman with blood on her sleeve had to be Sienna Ashford. Granddaughter. Sharp eyes. Calm face. Terrifying energy. She looked younger than Graham, but somehow more likely to order an execution and correct your grammar at the same time. Reeve appeared at the top of the stairs, expression controlled but tight. Because nothing ruins a cover-up like a billionaire family dragging a dying patriarch into the same building where your basement heresy alarm is still screaming. "Mr. Ashford," Reeve said, "the cathedral is handling a security incident." Graham turned on him. "My father is dying, handle that first." Hard to argue with that. A man in a white coat stepped through the parted crowd, silver hair swept back, hands already glowing with soft white light. Dr. Elias Monroe, rank 4 healer of the White Choir. The candidates around me reacted like a celebrity had entered. Even the ones who had just watched me hit rank 4 looked at him with a different kind of respect. My rank 4 was fresh, illegal looking, and smelled faintly of basement dust. Elias Monroe was polished, licensed, and famous. He moved to Henry's stretcher and placed 2 fingers against the old man's throat. His face tightened. "How long has he been like this?" Elias asked. Graham said, "Worsening for 9 days, critical for 2 hours. Sienna added, 3 prior healing attempts failed. 1 Golden Dominion stabilizer slowed the collapse, then shattered." That last sentence made the coin in my chest ring hard enough that I almost flinched. Mavrin's mark did not explain itself. It did not hand me a glowing arrow labeled OBVIAS plot, opportunity. It just struck that invisible coin inside my ribs and expected me to have a brain. Elias lifted his hands. "Clear the area." People moved. I did not, mostly because my legs still felt like cooked noodles. Mira grabbed my arm. "Dorian, move. I am emotionally moving." She dragged me back anyway. White light bloomed around Elias. It was living light, neither candlelight nor scanner glare, pouring from his hands into Henry's chest and wrapping the old man in translucent wings of healing sigils. The crowd went silent. For one moment, it worked. Henry's breathing steadied. The black veins retreated from his throat. Graham's face cracked with hope so sharp it hurt to look at. Then something golden snapped inside Henry's chest. The white light twisted. Elias's eyes widened. Impossible. The healing sigils tore apart like paper in a storm. A burst of white flame punched Elias backward. He hit the floor hard enough to skid across the marble and leave blood at the corner of his mouth. Henry convulsed. The black veins came back darker. The crowd screamed. Graham lunged toward the stretcher. "Father!" Sienna caught his arm. "Don't touch him. The backlash is still active." She sounded calm. Her fingers were shaking. "That was when I saw it. I saw it with the ugly new sense sitting behind my eyes." Around Henry Ashford, there should have been paths, tiny openings, possibilities, a breath that could lead to another breath, a treatment that could buy time, a mistake that could become luck. Instead, I saw cut ends. Dozens of faint black gold threads had been sliced around him, sealed with thin bands of bright gold. They were missing exits, not healing wounds or disease patterns. Henry's body was a house on fire with every door nailed shut. My mouth moved before my survival instinct could stop it. "You cannot heal a man whose next beginning was stolen." The entire corridor turned toward me. "Very subtle, Dorian. 10 out of 10. Brilliant." Elias pushed himself up, offended even while bleeding. "Who said that?" I raised one hand weakly. "The basement heretic," Blake muttered. "Naturally." Reeves' eyes sharpened. "Remove him." Graham looked at me. His expression was the kind rich men use when deciding whether to buy something or have it destroyed. "You have 10 seconds, he said. Sienna's gaze dropped to the black gold marks burning faintly through my torn shirt. "Let him speak," Reeve said. "Miss Ashford, this candidate is under review for one god conflict." "And yet," Sienna said coldly, He is standing, while your authorized healer is bleeding on the floor. I stepped closer, ignoring Reeves' glare and Elias's outrage. That ceremony had been all over the public business feeds in Dorian's memories, mostly because rich people love turning contracts into fireworks. 6 weeks ago, I said, Ashford Holdings signed a Golden Dominion Prosperity restructuring contract. Public ceremony. Orion's seal. Very shiny, very expensive. Graham's face changed. I kept going before he could interrupt. After that, your freight expansion failed, your hospital supply bid collapsed, and the Veyron Group won contracts they had no realistic path to win. Then Henry Ashford started declining. Sienna's eyes narrowed. That is all public information. Good. Then I am not crazy, I am just annoying. The coin in my chest rang again, and I saw one gold band pulse brighter than the rest. The illness is not the root, I said. Something cut away his next opening. Healing keeps failing because it is trying to repair a body with no path left to survive. Elias stared at me like I had spat on his degree. That is nonsense, he said. Fate trauma and opportunity severance are theoretical categories. The old man on the stretcher seems very committed to your theory being wrong. Mira hissed. Dorian! Right. Diplomatic career postponed. Graham stepped close enough that his security moved with him. Can you prove it? No, I said. Not from here. His face hardened. But, I added, pointing toward the lower chapel, I might be able to expose the contract if he is brought to Aelia as well. Reeve moved immediately. Absolutely not. That alone made Graham pause. Sienna noticed too. She looked at Reeve, then at the corridor behind me, then at Henry. What do you need? A public agreement, I said. If I fail, you lose nothing except the few minutes he may not have anyway. If I succeed, you pay Aelia's restoration bond, protect her shrine from decommissioning, and publicly recognize that her miracle saved Henry Ashford. Reeves' face went pale with anger. This is extortion. No, Sienna said. This is negotiation during a medical emergency. Our lawyers do it prettier. She took out a slim silver contract slate. Her fingers moved fast. Graham watched Henry's chest jerk again. Then he said, do it. The slate projected a contract in pale blue light. Sienna added clauses faster than I could read. Payment of restoration bond, public witness, medical consent, protection from immediate cathedral seizure, conditional on visible improvement and verification by Ashford witnesses. She handed the slate to me. You save him, she said, or this becomes your confession of fraud. Great, I said. Exactly the warm encouragement I needed. I pressed my bloody thumb to the contract. The moment my blood touched the slate, the coin mark rang so loudly my vision blurred. The contract was an opening. The stretcher descended into Aelia's chapel surrounded by Ashford guards, cathedral security, candidates, one furious director, one bleeding healer, Mira, Blake, Trent, and enough witnesses to make this either a miracle or my public execution. Aelia's well waited in the center. Weak, dry, listening. I set the contract slate on the rim and pressed one hand over my chest. Aelia, I said, I need the truth inside this vow. The sealed wheel beneath my skin turned. The falling coin mark flared, then a second sealed symbol cracked. The symbol was a ring of interlocked lines. A voice rose from the well, older than law and colder than a signed threat. First vow witnessed. The contract slate turned black. Sienna stepped back. What was that? I was really hoping someone else knew, the voice continued. Hidden term detected. The blue contract projection shattered into a second document beneath it. A golden seal burned at the bottom. Orion Drake's symbol sat inside it, not on Henry's body, but on an older Golden Dominion agreement attached to his name. A thread ran from that seal into Henry's chest, then out, away from him, toward nothing the scanner could display. Elias whispered, That is not a disease. The new voice spoke again. Future openings transferred. Survival paths assigned away, contract audit incomplete, authority concealed. Graham looked like someone had carved the air out of his lungs. Sienna's calm finally cracked. Who received them? The contract projection blurred. The golden seal resisted. Aelia's voice came through the well, strained. One path. I can open one path, no more. A cold pressure wrapped around my faction mark. I understood the price before she said it. If this failed, my mark would crack. Rank 4, Aelia, Mavrin, all of it could collapse into nothing. Back to rank 0. Back to silence. Maybe worse. I looked at Henry. Then at Reeve, who was staring at the exposed seal like a man watching his locked basement catch fire. I made my choice. I pressed both hands to the well. I serve Aelia of the first step, I said, loud enough for every witness to hear. I offer this first public vow, this exposed contract, and the beginning stolen from Henry Ashford. Open the path he was denied. The well erupted. Black gold light shot upward around the stretcher. Henry's body arched. The golden bands around him snapped one by one, each break ringing like a coin dropped into deep water. The empty pedestal behind the well cracked. A shape appeared above it. The shape was only a faceless, broken woman's silhouette standing where nothing had stood before. The golden seal screamed. Then Henry Ashford inhaled. It was a real breath, not a shallow twitch. His eyes opened. Graham Ashford dropped to one knee beside the stretcher with a sound that was almost a sob. Then he looked toward the dry well and said, hoarse but clear, "The Ashford family recognizes this miracle. Aelia's shrine is under our protection." Sienna covered her mouth, but her eyes never left the well. Elias Monroe stared at me like I had just murdered his profession and resurrected his patient as evidence. The cathedral scanner above the corridor went wild. Divinity rank recalculating. Reeve shouted, "Shut it down!" Too late. The public display flared so bright the whole chapel turned black gold. Divinity rank updated, rank 5. Current human ceiling, rank 5. The crowd went dead silent. Then the system kept going. Error. Beginning, authority detected. First seal fractured. Rank 6 pathway detected. The silhouette above the well lifted her head. For less than a second, another title burned across the scanner. Mother of Beginning. Then, every light in the chapel shattered. The chapel went dark like the cathedral itself had seen the words, rank 6, and decided to faint. For half a second, there was nothing. The scanner was dead, the candles were out, and Orion's smug marble glow from upstairs was gone. Only darkness remained, broken glass raining across stone while about 50 witnesses forgot how to breathe politely. Then the emergency strips kicked on. Red light washed over the lower chapel. Henry Ashford was coughing on the stretcher, alive enough to sound angry about it. Graham Ashford had one hand on his father's shoulder like he was afraid the old man would vanish if he let go. Sienna stood between the stretcher and the crowd with her contract slate raised, eyes sharp, blood still drying on her sleeve. I was on one knee beside Aelia as well, both hands shaking, chest burning like somebody had carved my ribs open and filled them with black gold fire. Rank 5. The modern human ceiling. Apparently, I had reached it by committing medical blasphemy in a condemned basement. Very normal evening. The crowd did not cheer at first. They stared. That was worse. Cheering means people understand what happened and approve. Staring means their brains are still trying to decide whether they witnessed a miracle, a crime, or a public safety violation. Then the whispering started. Rank 5. Did it say, rank 6 pathway? Mother of what? One god conflict. Golden seal. I saw the golden seal. Reeves' voice cut through the chaos. No one leaves this lower level. That snapped everyone's attention back to him. Malcolm Reeves stood under the emergency light with dust on his suit and murder tucked neatly behind his professional smile. His eyes flicked from Henry Ashford to me, then to the cracked scanner display above the chapel door. Cathedral security, Reeves said. Collect all unauthorized recordings. This was an unstable dormant site event and may constitute divine contamination. I almost laughed. Divine contamination. That was what they were calling it now. Save a dying billionaire from a hidden golden dominion seal, and suddenly you are not a miracle worker. You are basement mold with legs. One security guard stepped toward a candidate holding up his phone. Sienna Ashford's voice stopped him cold. Touch one witness record, she said, and Ashford Council files obstruction charges before sunrise. The guard froze. Reeve turned to her. Miss Ashford, this matter involves an unregistered divine manifestation and suspected violation of the one God rule. Sienna did not blink. This matter involves a public contract, a failed licensed healer, a hidden seal on my grandfather's agreement, and a miracle recognized by the Ashford family. Graham's voice came rough from beside the stretcher. The shrine is under our protection, so is the candidate. Candidate. That word felt ridiculous now. 5 minutes ago, I had been a rank 4 basement anomaly with a torn shirt. Now the system had called me rank 5, and I still felt like if someone handed me a sandwich, I might cry. Elias Monroe sat against the wall, one hand pressed to his bleeding mouth. His white choir sigils flickered weakly around his fingers as he stared at Henry Ashford. He looked at me once. There was no mockery in his face anymore, only professional horror. A healer hates nothing more than proof that the body was never the battlefield. Mira crouched beside me and grabbed my arm. Can you stand, emotionally or physically? Dorian. No. She helped me up anyway, my legs almost folded. The coin mark rang softly. The contract mark? Orin's mark sat colder beside it, like a ring made of law and bad decisions. Under both of them, Aelia's crescent burned steady. 3 channels. 1 path. The scanner had seen multiple divine signatures and panicked. Fair, honestly. If I were a government machine and some bleeding idiot suddenly carried 2 extra gods through a forgotten goddess, I would also scream. Reeves stepped toward me. Dorian West, until this event is reviewed, you are not to leave cathedral custody. Sienna moved first. She skipped the shouting and dramatic threats. Instead, she lifted the contract slate and angled it toward him. Our agreement grants immediate Ashford protection over the shrine, the recovered patient, and the performing divine agent pending verification. Performing divine agent? I muttered. That sounds expensive. Can I invoice myself? Mira pinched my arm. Sienna continued. If you believe the agreement is invalid, take it to the iron bench. If you detain him without process, you will be explaining why you obstructed the only person who successfully reversed my grandfather's collapse. Reeves' jaw tightened. For one perfect moment, the man who had tried to price Aelia's existence at $900,000 looked like he had swallowed the bill. Then his expression smoothed. Very well, he said. Temporary medical and legal protection is acknowledged. Temporary. That word landed like a knife placed carefully on a table. Reeve looked at me. Enjoy your miracle, Mr. West. By morning, everyone in this country will be asking what you really did. He turned and walked out. He left without drama or villain laughter, only a controlled retreat. That scared me more. People who scream are trying to win the room. People like Reeve leave the room to find a bigger weapon. The Ashford guards formed a wall around Henry, Aelia as well, and me. The crowd was pushed back, but the damage had already been done. Phones had recorded everything before Reeve's order. The rank 5 announcement, the error, the first seal, the rank 6 pathway, the title that flashed for less than a second. Mother of Beginning. I had seen it. Mira had seen it. Sienna had seen it. Reeve definitely had seen it because he had looked like someone opened a coffin and found his boss inside. Henry Ashford stirred on the stretcher. His eyes were open, cloudy but alive. He turned his head toward the well, then toward me. His voice came out cracked. There was a door. Everyone near him went still. Graham leaned close. Father? Henry's fingers trembled against the blanket. Gold on it. Couldn't open it. Couldn't breathe. Then his eyes closed again. The medics moved in, but this time their scanner lights stayed green. Weak, but green. A real breath. A stable pulse. Alive. The sight should have made me feel victorious. Instead, I felt the floor tilt under me. Aelia's voice touched the back of my mind, faint but clearer than before. You opened what was denied. I swallowed. And broke something in the process? The first seal. Right. Love that. Big fan of ominous nouns. Her presence flickered, less like a dying ember now and more like a flame behind cracked glass. Not broken, she whispered. Fractured. Important difference? Yes. Comforting? Not really. Before she could answer, the world above us began to move. It started with the phones. A candidate near the staircase looked down and said, It's already online. Someone else cursed. Within minutes, the chapel became a rumor factory with emergency lighting. Short clips spread faster than security could threaten people. One showed Henry waking. One showed Reeve yelling to shut down the scanner. One showed my rank 5 display. The captions were immediate and stupid. Basement goddess makes rank 5. Orion contract curse exposed. Multi-god heretic saves Ashford patriarch. That last one annoyed me because it was catchy. By the time Ashford security escorted me to a side chamber near the lower chapel, the Golden Dominion's first statement had already gone out. Sienna read it aloud from her slate, her voice flat. The Golden Dominion expresses concern regarding an unauthorized dormant shrine incident at Central Divine Cathedral. Early evidence suggests divine contamination, scanner instability, and potential violation of the One God Covenant. We urge the public not to draw conclusions from manipulated fragments of footage. I sat on a stone bench with a blanket around my shoulders and blinked at her. Wow, I said. They called me manipulated fragments before I even got dinner. Mira stood by the door, arms crossed. They are trying to make the miracle look illegal before people decide it was real. Can they? Sienna looked at me. Yes. She gave me no hesitation, which was exactly as comforting as it sounds. She crouched so we were eye level. Listen carefully. Rank 5 does not make you safe. It makes you valuable, frightening, and legally inconvenient. I was hoping for rich and handsome. You lack a church, a trained guard, a legal department, a national faction, a relic vault, senior apostles, and a media arm. You have one condemned shrine, one recovering goddess, 2 strange secondary channels, and a public scandal. I looked at Mira. She gives pep talks like a tax audit. Mira said, She is right. That was the worst part. Sienna stood. My family will pay the restoration bond and secure the lower chapel under the contract. That buys time. It does not stop the Golden Dominion from challenging Aelia's legitimacy or framing your power as corruption. What about Reeve? He left the cathedral 10 minutes ago, Sienna said. I sat up. He left, transferred authority to higher administration, according to cathedral staff. Translation: the local snakeheads slithered off to call larger snakes. A pulse of cold ran through my chest. Aelia. Her presence had gone quiet during the legal storm, but now the marks under my skin began to turn. The coin. The ring of contracts. Aelia's crescent. Around them, other sealed symbols I had barely noticed before began rotating like locks searching for keys. One symbol scratched hot under my ribs. A door. The door was awake, though nowhere near fully open. I grabbed the edge of the bench. Mira noticed immediately. Dorian? The side chamber blurred. For one breath, I saw an old place I had never visited, a platform under a rusted roof, tracks swallowed by weeds, names carved into wood, a dark well beneath the floorboards, a road that began where people left everything behind. Then the vision snapped away. I was back in the side chamber, panting. Sienna's hand had gone to a concealed weapon at her hip. Practical woman. What did you see? She asked. A station, I said. Old railway, maybe abandoned. There was another, well... Aelia's voice came through the marks, strained and afraid in a way I had not heard before. The first seal's fracture was loud. Who heard it? The answer came after a pause. Those who buried me. We had upgraded from local administrative murder to whoever buried. A goddess murder. Charming. The door mark burned again. It was calling now, pulling instead of guiding. Aelia whispered, "The second seal is awake." Mira went pale. Second? Sienna's eyes sharpened. Seal of what? I did not answer, because I did not know. Then the corridor outside the chamber went silent. The corridor outside went silent in the way soldiers stop talking when someone more dangerous enters the building. Ashford guards shifted into position. From beyond the door came the measured sound of polished shoes on stone. Slow, calm, unhurried. Aelia's voice dropped to almost nothing. The second seal is calling, Dorian West. The footsteps stopped outside our door. And so, she whispered, is the gold. The door opened like it had been waiting for permission from someone richer than us. There was no knock or warning, only one smooth click, and every Ashford guard in the side chamber raised a weapon at the same time. A man stood outside in a charcoal coat with a gold pin at his collar and the calm expression of someone who had never once rushed, because the world usually moved out of his way first. He looked maybe 35, maybe 50. Rank 5 people had that annoying polished quality where age became a suggestion for poor people. His hair was black with one silver streak near the temple, his gloves were dark leather, his eyes were pale gold, they were naturally gold, which was worse than glowing. Aelia's mark went cold inside my chest. Mavren's coin stopped ringing, Oren's contract ring tightened like a noose. The man smiled at the weapons pointed at him. Please lower those before someone embarrasses themselves. Sienna did not lower hers. Identify yourself. Lucian Harrow, he said. The room changed. The change came without thunder or dramatic wind. Every adult with money, legal training, or survival instincts simply understood that the temperature had dropped. Even I knew the name from the novel, Lucian Harrow. Veteran rank 5 apostle of the Golden Dominion, one of Orion Drake's highest living followers, the kind of man who did not show up for accidents. He showed up when the accident survived. I tried to stand straighter. My knees immediately submitted a complaint. Lucian's eyes settled on me. Dorian West, you look worse than the video suggested. Good, I said. I was afraid the camera added trauma. Mira made a tiny sound beside me, like she wanted to kick my ankle but respected that I might fall over. Lucian stepped into the chamber. The Ashford guards shifted, but none of them blocked him. That told me everything I needed to know. Rank 5 did not mean equal, it meant capacity. Lucian had capacity plus money, relics, influence, training, and enough confidence to use someone's security detail as interior decoration. Sienna's voice stayed sharp. Dorian West is under Ashford protection. Lucian nodded. Temporarily, medically, contractually, not theologically. He lifted one gloved hand, and a flat golden seal unfolded in the air like a document made of sunlight. I am not here to kill your miracle worker, Miss Ashford. I am here to prevent a divine infection from becoming a church. There it was. He did not attack my body. He attacked the room's permission to believe me. The seal projected a formal notice into the air. Emergency petition for divine legitimacy review. Respondent, Dorian West. Claimed patron, Aelia of the First Step. Allegations, unlawful dormant remnant worship, one god covenant violation, fraudulent divinity escalation, corrupted secondary channels, unlawful shrine restoration. I stared at the words. Fraudulent divinity escalation, I said. That sounds like cheating on a standardized test with extra incense. Lucian smiled politely. Humor is common in frightened candidates. Good. I was worried I was special. He ignored that and looked toward Sienna. The iron bench has accepted emergency jurisdiction. The wall behind him darkened. An iron gray symbol appeared there, a balanced scale inside a square. H and K. It had no face or personhood, only the presence of law pressing into the room like a heavy hand. A neutral voice spoke from the symbol. Emergency petition acknowledged. Divine legitimacy. Hearing opened. My stomach dropped. Sienna swore under her breath, which was honestly the most human thing she had done so far. Lucian continued. Until the hearing concludes, Aelia's shrine remains under provisional restriction. Dorian West remains under observation. Any attempt to remove sealed evidence from this cathedral may be treated as obstruction. I looked at Sienna. Can he do that? Her jaw tightened. With Iron Bench jurisdiction, yes. We had gone from basement heresy to divine court in under an hour. At this pace, by breakfast, I would be at war with a moon. Impressive. The iron symbol pulsed. Potential penalties upon adverse finding, shrine condemnation, faction mark severance, loss of divine legal protection, classification as a divine criminal. My mouth went dry. Mark severance! I felt Aelia's crescent twitch under my skin. Not fear exactly. Pain. Old pain. Lucian saw my expression and softened his voice, which somehow made him worse. You have moved very quickly, Mr. West. Too quickly. A forgotten nursery goddess answers after decades of silence. A broke candidate jumps to rank 5. Multiple signatures appear under one mark. A hidden title flashes on an unstable scanner. Surely even you understand why the law must ask questions. I understand why you want the questions asked before anyone asks why Henry Ashford had a Golden Dominion seal in his chest. The room sharpened. Sienna's eyes flicked to me. Lucian's smile did not change. A tragic misinterpretation of contract residue, he said. One your inexperience inflated into accusation. Graham Ashford's voice came from the doorway, rough and dangerous. He had left Henry with the medics and now looked like a man holding himself together with rage and expensive tailoring. My father was dying. Lucian bowed slightly. And I am pleased he is recovering. The Golden Dominion wishes him continued strength. Spare me. Lucian looked almost amused. As you wish. Then he turned back to me and snapped his fingers. A second document unfolded in the air. Old parchment. Gold border, black ink, a seal pressed at the bottom, a footprint inside a circle, scratched through by a line of gold. Aelia's mark spasmed. Pain shot through my ribs so hard I nearly folded. Mira caught my elbow. Dorian? Aelia's voice came inside my head, broken and panicked. No, just one word. It was denial, not explanation. Lucian watched me closely. This is the surviving surrender record of Aelia of the First Step. By her own recorded consent, she relinquished independent authority to Aurion Drake's stewardship after her following collapsed. The room went silent again. Sienna stepped closer. You claim Aelia surrendered her authority? I claim nothing, Lucian said. The record claims it. The iron symbol pulsed. Document admitted as preliminary evidence. My chest burned, the door mark scratched under my ribs like something trying to escape. Aelia's presence flickered in and out, more pain than voice. I forced myself to look at the document instead of the man holding it. If I looked at Lucian, I would only see confidence. If I looked at the record, maybe I would see the lie. The handwriting looked old. The seal looked older. But the wording was too clean, too modern. The phrase, minor developmental divinity, appeared in the third line. That was registry language, the same insulting category the app had used when Trent mocked her. Also, the footprint seal did not sit under the gold line. It sat over it, like someone had stamped Aelia's symbol after the gold had already scarred the page. I remembered the chapel ledger, old ink, messy first moment records, human hands, crooked spelling, tiny offerings. This document looked like history after a lawyer washed it, dressed it, and taught it to lie politely. I pointed at the seal. That stamp is wrong. Lucian tilted his head. Is it? The footprint was added after the gold cut. The old ledger marks do not layer like that. And minor developmental divinities is modern classification language. You want me to believe an ancient surrender record used the same phrase as a cathedral app? Mira's eyes widened. Sienna moved instantly. Iron bench, note the objection. The iron voice answered. Objection noted. Evidence challenge requires certified counter record. Certified counter record. The court did not care that I saw the lie, felt the lie, or had a goddess twisting in pain inside my chest. None of that was admissible. Lucian's smile turned almost gentle. Suspicion is not proof, Mr. West. Your rank does not make your opinion historical fact. I hated him a little for being right. Then he stepped closer. Tell the bench how you carry these channels. My blood went cold. What? Lucian's pale gold eyes tracked the scanner residue clinging to my mark and paused on the half-awake symbols beneath it. The coin. The contract ring. The door stirring under your mark. Are they independent gods, stolen fragments, possession channels, or have you created an unauthorized root covenant beneath Aelia's broken shrine? Root covenant. The words hit my mark like a hammer striking a bell. Aelia went absolutely silent. Lucian noticed. So did Sienna. So did I. I did not know what a root covenant was. But Lucian did. That was a problem the size of a cathedral. I carry one patron, I said carefully. Aelia of the first step. Whatever else answers through her. Lucian's eyes sharpened. Convenient. Accurate. Unproven. The iron symbol pulsed again. Respondent must provide evidence of lawful divine continuity or submit to supervised mark examination. Mira whispered. What is mark examination? Sienna's face darkened. They cut into the faction mark with legal authority. My whole body went cold. Cut into my mark, into Aelia, into the only path keeping her voice alive. Aelia's whisper returned, faint and strained. Railway. The door symbol burned so hard I grabbed my chest. For a split second the side chamber vanished again. Rusty tracks, a sealed platform, names carved into support beams, a ticket booth with broken glass, under the floor a black well breathing through the boards, and a symbol above it, a door opening into a road. I gasped. Sienna stepped in front of me. He needs medical recovery before any examination. Lucian said. He needs proof. Then give us time to retrieve it. Lucian looked at her. You know what happens if he leaves this cathedral. He will be escorted by Ashford security under iron bench notice. The iron symbol remained silent for 3 awful seconds. Then it spoke. Continuance granted. 24 hours. Respondent may retrieve certified counter-evidence under witness escort. Failure to return will result in adverse inference and warrant for divine custody. 24 hours. To find a station from a vision. To prove a goddess had not surrendered her own existence. To stop Lucian Harrow from legally carving into my soul. I nodded, because collapsing would have been undignified and also probably used against me. Lucian folded the golden document away. Good, he said. Run toward your little railway ghost. He leaned close enough that only I could hear the next words. Every buried god leaves a grave, Dorian West. I am very interested to see what yours remembers. Then he stepped back, smooth as a blade sliding into a sheath. The iron symbol faded from the wall. The door mark under my ribs pulsed once more. This time, the vision came with direction. West side of the city, abandoned rail district, a station swallowed by weeds. And under platform B, something dark opened one eye. Mavrin's coin rang in my chest, warning instead of offering opportunity. Because Lucian Harrow was smiling, and when we left for the railway shrine, the gold would follow. 24 hours sounds generous until a veteran rank 5 smiles like he has just handed you rope instead of time. We left the cathedral before sunrise under Ashford escort, iron bench observation, and enough legal pressure to make my soul itch. I was wrapped in a borrowed coat, still wearing torn clothes underneath, because clearly reaching rank 5 did not include a wardrobe update. Disappointing system. Terrible customer service. Sienna rode in the front of the armored car reading updates from 3 legal feeds at once. Mira sat beside me with a first aid kit, glaring every time I tried to peel the bandage off my thumb. Stop touching it, she said. It keeps bleeding in a suspiciously plot-relevant way. That is not a medical category. Give it time. A small iron-gray orb floated above Sienna's contract slate, silently recording. Iron bench witness device. It followed us because the court wanted proof, not excuses. If we failed to bring back certified counter-evidence, Lucian got to ask for mark examination. Every time I remembered that phrase, my chest tightened. Mark examination meant a blade through the faction. Mark, through Aelia, through me. Behind us, 2 black cars kept the same distance for 6 blocks. Sienna glanced at the mirror. Golden Dominion surveillance. Are they allowed to follow us? They are allowed to exist on public roads. Lovely. I love when murder respects traffic law. The West Side Rail District looked like the city had tried to forget it and mostly succeeded. Warehouses sat with broken windows. Old tracks cut through weeds. A chain-link fence sagged around an abandoned station with half its sign missing. There were no worship banners, cathedral seals, or gold. Only rust, silence, and a platform roof chewed up by weather. My door mark burned under my ribs. Platform B. The moment my foot crossed the fence line, Aelia whispered inside my head. People left from here. I guessed from the train tracks. Not only trains. Her voice had that distant, broken quality again, but something underneath it trembled. Recognition. Fear. Maybe grief. Ashford guards cut the fence lock and moved in first. Sienna followed with the iron bench orb. Mira stayed close enough that if I collapsed, she could look disappointed before catching me. Inside the station, the air smelled like wet wood, oil, and pigeon crimes. The ticket booths were shattered. Benches lay overturned. Old departure boards hung crooked from the ceiling. Someone had painted over the far wall years ago, but the paint had peeled in long strips, showing scratched writing beneath. Names. Hundreds of them. The names had been scraped by knives, keys, nails, maybe desperate fingernails. First journey west, first day free, first train after the war, first road without him, first crossing with my child. Mira touched one name lightly. These are prayers. Sienna lifted her slate. To who? The door mark pulsed. I wiped dirt from a support beam until older words appeared beneath the grime. To the mother who opened roads. The station seemed to breathe. Aelia made a sound inside my chest that was almost pain. I stared at the words. They did not call you Aelia. No, she whispered. Mother, Mira said softly. The iron bench orb hummed and recorded the wall. Sienna's expression sharpened. This may count as counter-record if we can establish continuity. Continuity, I muttered. Nothing makes ancient worship sexy like paperwork. Then Mavrin's coin rang once, sharp as a warning. The black cars had stopped outside. We moved fast after that. The pole led us to platform B, where weeds had grown between cracked tiles. A yellow safety line still ran along the edge, faded but visible. Beyond it, old rails disappeared into a blocked tunnel. The door mark burned hotter near the platform's center. There, I said. One Ashford guard pried up a warped board. Cold air breathed through the gap. Beneath the platform was a narrow stairwell descending into darkness, because every important god in this city had been stored underground like embarrassing family furniture. I went first before my courage could consult my common sense. Under platform B, we found a small chamber built around an unregistered offering well. It was not dry like Aelia's first chapel had been. This one held black water so still it looked like polished glass. Around the rim were tiny offerings turned green with age, bent train tickets, boot nails, a soldier's button, a cracked wedding ring, a child's ribbon tied around a rusted key. Above the well, carved into stone, was a door opening into a road. My knees nearly gave out. Sienna held the iron bench orb closer. Dorian? This is it. I found an old ticket in the booth ledger, brittle and half-eaten by damp. First departure. One way, no destination printed, just a blank line where the future should have been. That felt a little too personal. I set the ticket on the well's rim, then added copied names from the wall, one boot nail, and my blood, because of course we were doing that again. At this point my thumb should have unionized. I offer the first departures remembered here, I said. The names of those who crossed because staying would kill them, the roads they prayed for, the thresholds they survived. The black water rippled. Outside, metal shrieked. One Ashford guard shouted, "Contact!" Gold light flashed through the floorboards overhead. Sienna drew her weapon. Mira grabbed a loose iron pipe because clearly she had decided candlestands were gateway violence. The well answered with a voice unlike Aelia's cold, Mavrin's rough laugh, or Oren's legal chill. This one sounded like a door opening during a storm. Who stands at the border and asks for the road? I do, I said. Dorian West, follower of Aelia of the First Step. The chamber shook, the voice went quiet. Then, reverent and furious, it said, Aelia, that little name still bleeds. Aelia whispered, Adrian. The black water rose in a thin line and struck the door mark under my ribs. I saw stations, bridges, gates, alleys, courtroom doors, train platforms, every place where one side ended and another began. Then pain folded me in half. A third mark opened inside Aelia's crescent. A door. Edrin doorward answers the old road, the voice said. Threshold step is yours, little walker. Use it only where a true boundary stands. Try it in empty space, and you will learn why walls enjoy eating fools. Everyone is so supportive, I gasped. The ceiling cracked. Golden cords punched through the boards and wrapped around the well chamber like glowing wire. Men dropped down after them, faces covered by pale masks, sleeves marked with tiny golden dominion scales. One Ashford guard fired. A gold shield caught the shot and threw him backward into the wall. Sienna grabbed my arm. Can you move us? I got the power 12 seconds ago. Can you move us? I hate reasonable questions. I reached for the new door mark and aimed at the nearest wall. The mark gave me nothing. Edrin's voice barked, Threshold, idiot. Very clear manual, thank you. The masked men advanced. One swung a gold-edged baton at Mira. She ducked, slammed the iron pipe into his knee, and looked mildly surprised when he fell screaming. I decided never to annoy her without witnesses. The platform edge. That was the boundary. I grabbed Mira with one hand and Sienna with the other, then stumbled toward the yellow line above the old rails. A masked man lunged for my back. Mavrin's coin rang, and I dropped half a step too early. His baton cut through air where my spine had been. The yellow line lit black gold beneath my foot. First crossing, I said. The world opened sideways. For one awful breath, I was not walking through space. I was stepping through the idea of leaving. Then we spilled out into a boarded service corridor behind the old waiting room. I hit the floor, face first, because divine movement clearly did not include dignity. Mira landed on one knee. Sienna landed standing, because rich people even fell with better training. The iron bench orb zipped after us, still recording. Behind the wall, the masked men shouted. "They will find the corridor," Sienna said. "Then we need the proof first." The service corridor ended at a collapsed mural wall. Most of it had been plastered over, but the threshold step had shaken loose a panel of rotten wood. Behind it was color. Old color. Ancient color, not church gold or modern paint. Ancient black, red, white, and deep metallic gold arranged around a faceless woman standing at the center of a road that split into countless paths. Around her were smaller figures, a falling coin, a ring of vows, a door with eyes, other symbols still buried under damage. My breath stopped. Mira whispered, "That is Aelia?" "Maybe," I said, "or who she was before they cut her down to nursery prayers." At the bottom of the mural, one golden figure had been scratched almost completely away. Someone had gouged the face, the hands, the title, but the remaining symbol was impossible to miss. A golden scale, a coin, a book of contracts. Orion Drake. Sienna lifted the orb closer. "He is in the mural." I wiped dust from the stone with my sleeve. More of the image appeared. Orion was neither beside nor above the faceless woman, and the mural did not show a surrender. He knelt beneath her, head bowed, both hands raised like a servant accepting a task. Mira went silent. Sienna stopped breathing for half a second. From beyond the corridor wall, the masked men started breaking through. And I stared at the mural, finally understanding why Lucian had let me run here. Because the station did not just prove Aelia had existed, it proved Orion had once knelt. The gold had not been first, it had served what came before it. The masked agents did not break through the wall like professional assassins. They broke through like men trying to murder evidence before evidence learned how to scream. The first gold-edged baton punched through the rotten panel beside Orion's kneeling figure and tore a chunk of ancient paint off the mural. Sienna swore. Mira grabbed the iron bench orb like it was a baby with legal authority, and I stared at the damage with the calm inner peace of a man whose entire defense strategy was being beaten with a stick. "Move," Sienna snapped. "I am very emotionally attached to the historic wall." Dorian. "Fine, hate culture, understood." The corridor behind us had one boarded maintenance door, half rotten and chained shut, a real door, a real threshold. Finally, the architecture decided to be useful. I grabbed the new mark under my ribs. Edrin's power answered like a hinge turning inside my bones. A masked agent shoved through the panel, gold shield flaring around his arm. He reached for the iron bench orb first, not me, which told me everything. They were not here to win a fight, they were here to erase what the court could see. Mavrin's coin rang, and I stepped backward onto the maintenance door's broken frame while pulling Mira and Sienna with me. "Threshold," I said. The chained door opened into somewhere it had no right to open. We fell through cold air and landed inside a dark records room behind the mural wall. Shelves lined the narrow space. Some were ancient wood, some were modern metal. That was the first bad sign. Old history being hidden was one thing. New files being hidden beside it meant the crime had not ended. The iron bench orb bobbed in the air, its gray light sweeping over boxes, sealed folders, dust-covered plaques, and a row of filing cabinets marked with Golden Dominion inventory tags. Sienna stared at the tags. "Those are current issue." "Naturally they are," I said. "Nothing says innocent like storing modern documents inside a haunted railway wall." Mira jammed the iron pipe through the door handles as the agents hit the other side. The first impact bent the frame. "That will not hold," she said. "Good. I was worried we had too much time." Sienna shoved open the nearest cabinet. Inside were folders stamped with polished gold seals. Recent. Community Prosperity Drive. Westward Outreach. Rank 0 Candidate Assistance. Blessing Access Initiative. The words looked kind. Clean. Charitable. Exactly the kind of phrases rich monsters used when they wanted theft to wear a nice jacket. Sienna opened one file and held it under the orb. The top page showed smiling families standing in front of Golden Dominion banners. Free meals, candidate counseling, small offerings welcomed, public blessing registration for poor neighborhoods. Then she flipped to the second page. The columns changed. Candidate name, unrealized opening, projected first success, beginning yield, harvest status, redirected pool. Nobody spoke. The agents hit the door again. The pipe bent harder. I stared at the page while my stomach turned cold. Unrealized opening, projected first success, beginning yield. These were not donations or failed prayers. They were measuring what a person might have become before the person ever had a chance to become it. Mira whispered, "What is beginning yield?" I already hated the answer before I knew it. Sienna pulled another file. "It looks like blessing potential, first promotion, first successful business, first scholarship, first recovery, first faction acceptance." Her voice went flatter with every word. "Then the harvested value is transferred into elite prosperity pools." The door shook again. A masked agent shouted from outside, "Destroy the recording unit!" Mira looked at me. "Dorian." I know, but I could not move yet, because I had found Henry Ashford's name. His name sat in a higher folder with black gold tabs, far above the charity files. Targeted transfer case, Ashford, Henry. Status, high-value survival path reassignment. Linked contract, Golden Dominion restructuring. Recipient pool, sealed. The seal resisted the iron bench orb's light, but not enough to hide the pattern. Henry had been a special version of the same theft. Cleaner, richer, better hidden, and if Henry Ashford could be carved up under a formal prosperity contract, what chance did poor rank 0 candidates have at a neighborhood charity drive? Aelia's voice trembled under my skin. "They take the first road." I looked back at the mural through a crack in the wall. Orion kneeling beneath the faceless woman. Below his damaged image, tiny surviving words appeared where the paint had flaked away. "Keeper of reward after the road." Sienna's orb caught it. Mira read the line out loud, voice shaking. "After the road!" I wiped dust from another strip with my sleeve. More words surfaced. "Coin after crossing, gold after harvest, prosperity after path." There it was. Orion had not been the beginning of fortune. He had been what came after fortune succeeded. The receipt. The payout. The shine people mistook for the source because shiny things are very good at seducing idiots. And yes, unfortunately, I included myself in that category. I had almost worshipped him too. The door buckled. Sienna shoved files into a sealed evidence pouch. "We have enough for the hearing." "No," Mira said. Her voice had changed. Her voice had turned personal, which was worse than scared. She stood in front of an open drawer holding one page so tightly the edges crumpled. "I saw the name before she said it. Caldwell. Evan. Mira's brother." The file showed a Golden Dominion prosperity drive from 5 years ago. Public outcome, no blessing response, rank 0 retention. Community assistance concluded. The hidden line beneath it read, projected first acceptance, rank 2 technical blessing. Beginning yield, harvested. Redirected to municipal prosperity pool. Mira's face went white. "My brother did everything right," she said quietly. "He studied for 2 years. He had recommendation letters. After that drive, his offering failed. He never got another chance." The room felt smaller. I did not have a joke for that. Some things deserve silence because comedy would just be cowardice wearing a stupid hat. Mira folded the page with shaking hands and placed it under the iron bench orb. "Record it," she said. The orb hummed. Evidence captured. The maintenance door exploded inward. Gold light flooded the records room. The first masked agent charged straight for Mira and the evidence pouch. I moved before thinking, which is how most of my worst ideas entered the world. The room had shelves, door frames, cabinet gaps, the edge between ancient wood flooring and newer metal panels, thresholds, tiny ones, ugly ones, real ones. I grabbed the shelf frame and pulled. Threshold step tore me sideways through a gap between 2 cabinets. I came out beside the agent, slammed into him shoulder first, and sent both of us crashing into a filing drawer. Did it look heroic? Probably not. Did it hurt him more than me? Barely, but I accepted the win. Sienna fired twice. Her shots cracked against gold shields but forced the agents back. Mira swung the pipe at the man nearest the orb with the focused rage of someone who had just found her family's stolen future in a filing cabinet. I grabbed the evidence pouch and the iron bench orb. "We need out!" Sienna shouted. "Find me a threshold that does not lead into more murder!" Edrin's mark burned. The old service corridor had another doorway ahead, half hidden behind stacked crates. Beyond it, I felt open air, tracks, a platform boundary. I reached for Mira. She did not move. "Mira!" She was still staring at the drawer full of names. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. All those futures reduced to yields, pools, statuses, and polite charity language. I grabbed her wrist. "We take what we can carry, then we make them answer for the rest." Her eyes snapped to mine. For the first time since I met her, Mira looked less skeptical than dangerous. "Promise?" she asked. That was a stupid thing to ask a guy who had spent the last 2 days turning promises into supernatural disasters. I answered anyway. "Promise!" Oren's ring went cold. The vow heard me. "Excellent, no pressure. We hit the hidden doorway together." "First crossing," I said. The world folded. We burst out onto the main platform in a spray of black gold sparks, just as the last Ashford guard outside got knocked to one knee by a golden cord. The masked agents behind us tried to follow, but the threshold snapped shut before they reached it. For one beautiful second, I thought we had escaped. That was when every exit of the station turned gold. The tunnel mouth, the fence gate, the broken ticket door, even the gaps between train cars along the siding lit with thin golden lines. The masked agents had not done that. It was too clean, too complete. A slow clap echoed from the far end of Platform B. Lucian Harrow walked out from behind an old signal post, spotless coat untouched by dust, pale gold eyes resting on the evidence pouch in my hand. "Excellent work," he said. "You found the archive." Sienna raised her weapon. "Stand aside. The iron bench recording is protected evidence." Lucian glanced at the orb. "I have no intention of destroying it." That was the worst possible answer. I swallowed. "You knew this was here, parts of it." Lucian looked at the broken station around us with something almost like nostalgia. The old system was inefficient, but not entirely wrong. Mira stepped forward, voice shaking with fury. "You stole from my brother!" Lucian looked at her, and for the first time his smile faded. "No, Miss Caldwell. Your brother carried an unrealized beginning he could not convert. The Dominion reassigned it to a pool that produced measurable prosperity for thousands." Mira's pipe trembled in her hand. "You ruined him." Lucian's gaze moved from her to me. "And then he said the thing that made the whole war stop being about documents. You call it theft because you still believe every beginning belongs to the person born with it." Lucian sealed every exit with gold, and I learned the difference between reaching rank 5 and surviving someone who had been rank 5 long enough to get comfortable with murder. The golden lines across the station did not just block the doors, they owned them. The tunnel mouth, the fence gate, the broken ticket booth, even the gaps between old train cars along the siding, all glowed with thin, perfect light. Every threshold I could have used with Edrin's power had a golden leash wrapped around its throat. Lucian stood at the far end of Platform B, clean coat, calm face, hands folded behind his back like he was supervising a disappointing school trip. "You call it theft," he said, "because you still believe every beginning belongs to the person born with it." Mira's grip tightened around the iron pipe. I felt her wanting to swing. Same, honestly. But my chest was already screaming from Aelia, Mavrin, Orin, and Edrin all burning in different directions, and Lucian looked like he had slept 8 hours, eaten breakfast, and scheduled my humiliation between 2 meetings. Sienna lifted the evidence pouch. The iron bench orb hovered beside her, gray light flickering against the golden seals. "This evidence is under court witness protection," she said. Lucian glanced at the orb. "Then let the court witness the difference between evidence and interpretation." He moved one finger. The platform shifted. It did not crack or explode. It shifted. The rotted board under my right foot dipped half an inch at the exact moment I moved. My ankle rolled. Pain shot up my leg, and Lucian crossed 30 feet before I could correct my balance. Mavrin's coin screamed inside my chest. I ducked. Lucian's gloved hand passed over my head and carved a golden line through the air where my neck had been. He used no weapon, only his hand. The rich had learned premium slaving. Adorable. I grabbed the yellow platform line and tried to threshold step sideways. The line flashed gold. Locked. Lucian's knee hit my ribs. The world turned white. I slammed into a rusted bench hard enough to break it in half. The evidence pouch skidded across the platform. Mira lunged for it, but a golden cord snapped around her ankle and yanked her down. "Mira!" I shouted. Sienna fired 3 shots. Lucian did not even look at her. Each bullet bent away by a few inches and buried itself in the wooden platform behind him. That scared me worse than a shield. A shield meant defense. This was timing itself, politely betraying us. Lucian walked toward me. "Rank measures capacity, Mr. West, not mastery." I coughed, tasted blood, and pushed myself onto one elbow. "That feels like something you practiced saying in a mirror." "I have said it to many young apostles. Did they all hate you?" "The living ones learned." The golden cord around Mira's ankle dragged her toward the track edge. She dug the pipe into the boards, teeth clenched, refusing to scream. Sienna dove for the evidence pouch, but the gold seal around the station pulsed and the iron bench orb flickered. "Transmission obstructed," the orb announced. Lucian looked mildly pleased. "The station is under Dominion containment. Nothing leaves until I decide the legal shape of what you found." Orin's ring went freezing cold. A line of invisible law unfolded over the platform. It was not exactly a document. It looked more like the skeleton of a claim. I saw it for 1 second. Old railway property, abandoned civil crossing, emergency Dominion containment, derivative authority claimed under Orion stewardship, the same lie wearing another suit. "He's using the surrender record to claim the station," I gasped. Sienna's eyes snapped to me. "Can you break that? I'm taking suggestions from the gods currently living in my ribcage." Orin's voice rose like a contract being opened with a knife. "Counterclaim requires witnesses." Lucian tilted his head. He heard enough to understand I had noticed something. Then he stepped on my wrist. The pain was immediate and humiliating. Bones ground against wood. My fingers spasmed open. The black gold marks under my skin flashed, and Lucian's gold pressed down over them. Aelia's crescent flickered. For 1 horrible second, her voice went faint. Lucian leaned down. "This is why mark examination is necessary. You are carrying a structure you do not understand." I tried to answer with something cool. What came out was a strained, "Your shoe is very committed." He pressed harder. The crescent cracked with a sharp sound only I could hear. Aelia gasped inside me. Something ugly opened in my chest. Fear opened in my chest instead of power. If he broke the mark here, Aelia would not die cleanly. She would go quiet, again. All those names, all those first roads, all those stolen beginnings would become files in a cabinet and paint under a wall. I refused that future. Mavrin's coin rang once. The signal pointed past Lucian to the evidence pouch, to Mira, to the records. Witnesses. I stopped trying to pull my wrist free and reached for the promise Oren had heard in the records room. We take what we can carry, then we make them answer for the rest. Oren, I whispered, call the vow. The contract ring burned black. Mira's file pages snapped out of the evidence pouch as if hit by wind. Evan Caldwell's name flashed in gray light from the iron bench orb. Then another file opened. And another. Hundreds of names spilled across the platform in projected lines. Rank 0 candidates, failed offerings, harvested beginnings, redirected pools. Mira looked up from the edge, eyes blazing. Sienna understood first. She grabbed the orb and shouted, "Iron Bench, recognize all named parties as potential harmed witnesses in a contested divine theft record." The orb stuttered under the gold interference. Lucian's expression finally sharpened. "Careful, Miss Ashford." Sienna's smile was all teeth. "Careful is what people say when they are afraid the procedure works." The railway well beneath platform B answered. Black water surged up through the cracks between boards, rising in thin lines like ink finding old grooves. The carved names on the beams began to glow. Traveler names, victim names, people who had prayed for first roads, people whose first roads had been stolen before they ever reached them. Aelia whispered, "They do not need to kneel." I understood. They were witnesses, not followers. I slammed my free palm against the platform. "I call every beginning taken here," I said. My voice shook, but it carried. Every first acceptance, first recovery, first shop, first road, first chance, first life that got turned into someone else's prosperity. Lucian lifted his hand. Golden pressure crashed down. My vision blurred. The boards around me splintered. The mark on my chest burned like a brand, but the names kept glowing. One by one, voices rose from the station. They rose as quiet, almost inhuman echoes. A boy whispering that he had studied. A woman saying she had saved every dollar. A mechanic asking why his blessing never answered. Evan Caldwell's name burned bright enough that Mira sobbed once and then covered her mouth with her fist. Lucian's containment lines wavered. Only a little. But against him, a little felt like surviving a car crash by annoying the car. "Edrin," I gasped. The platform edge under Lucian's foot was still gold-sealed, but the crack between old station floor and newer Dominion containment was not. Tiny, ugly, real. Real. A threshold between truth and claim. I pushed through it. The world twisted sideways. I did not escape. I appeared behind Lucian badly, half falling, shoulder screaming, but alive enough to grab the evidence pouch with my broken hand and kick it toward Sienna. Mira swung the pipe with both hands. She aimed at the golden cord around her ankle instead of Lucian. The cord cracked. Sienna caught the pouch and shoved it into the orb's light. The orb flared iron gray. Witness threshold recognized. Lucian turned. For the first time, he moved fast. Too fast. He struck me in the chest with 2 fingers. My faction, mark nearly split. I heard Aelia scream. Black gold light burst out of my shirt. The coin, the ring, and the door all spun around the crescent as if trying to hold it together with panic and spite. I dropped to my knees. Lucian stood over me, and now his calm was gone. Not completely. Men like him probably paid extra to have emotions removed, but the edges had cracked. "You are wasting power on people who never became anything," he said. I looked up at him through blood and station dust. "No," I said, "you stole the part where they might have." Aelia's presence moved through me. Weak, furious, and no longer alone. The old offering well under platform B roared. The faceless woman in the mural appeared in the air above the station, still broken, still incomplete, but larger than before. Around her, the falling coin, the vow ring, and the door burned black gold. The station shook. The gold seals across the exits fractured into spiderweb cracks. The second seal surfaced beneath the platform as a circle of locked symbols, half hidden in black water and rusted rail lines. It did not open fully, but it cracked. A line split through the seal, and light poured out. The woman's silhouette lifted her face. For the first time, where her eyes should have been, 2 dark shapes opened. The iron bench orb screamed with static. "Partial seal fracture recorded." Lucian stepped back. He was not defeated. Nothing about Lucian was ever that easy. He was repositioning, the kind of step a man takes when the room has become more expensive than planned. Then the cracked seal under the platform projected one line of text into the air. "Beware the child of stolen gold." Every voice in the station died at once. Mira stared at the warning. Sienna lowered her weapon by an inch. Even Lucian stopped smiling. I stayed on my knees, clutching my burning chest, and realized the seal had not warned us about Lucian. It was warning us about someone else. The warning hung over Platform B like the station itself had learned how to threaten people. "Beware the child of stolen gold." Nobody moved. Mira, Sienna, the injured Ashford guards, and even Lucian Harrow all froze, which was rude, because if the villain freezes too, that usually means the warning is above everyone's pay grade. I stayed on my knees with one hand over my chest, trying to keep my faction mark from finishing its dramatic hobby of splitting open. My wrist throbbed. My ribs felt rearranged. My dignity had left during the fight and was probably hiding under a bench. Lucian's pale gold eyes shifted from the warning to the iron bench orb. The orb was still alive. Barely. Its gray light flickered through the golden interference, recording the cracked second seal, the victim names, the witness threshold, and Lucian's very calm explanation that stealing people's beginnings was basically advanced charity with better accounting. Sienna noticed the same thing. She lifted the evidence pouch with shaking hands and said, "Iron bench, confirm live record." The orb sparked. For one ugly second I thought it would die. Then an iron-gray circle opened above the platform, heavy and flat, like a courtroom door made of storm clouds. "Live record confirmed," the iron bench voice said. "Witness threshold recognized. Prosperity dried victim records acknowledged. Golden Dominion containment claim contested." Lucian's face did not panic. Men like Lucian did not panic in public. They only recalculated with better posture. But the gold lines around the station tightened too fast, and that was enough. He was afraid. He was not afraid of me. Let's not get delusional. I was one aggressive cough away from becoming station decoration. He was afraid of the proof surviving. Mira pushed herself upright, one leg still bruised from the golden cord. Evan Caldwell's projected file burned near her shoulder. "My brother's name is in that record," she said, voice raw. "Say it again. Tell the court it was efficient." Lucian looked at her, and for the first time, he did not answer immediately. That silence felt better than any insult I could have thrown. Sienna stepped forward. "The respondent requests immediate verification of recovered worship, railway archive continuity, and victim witness standing." I looked at her. "You make desperate pleading sound expensive. Shut up and keep bleeding dramatically," she said. "It helps. Fair." I had become evidence with a pulse. The iron bench orb turned toward the old offering well beneath the platform. "Verification requires complete witness alignment." Lucian raised one hand. Gold gathered at his fingers, sharper than before. "If you force this," he said, "you will turn an old shrine into a national rupture." I coughed and smiled because clearly my survival instinct had resigned. "Buddy, you built a charity program out of stolen futures. I think the rupture has a pretty strong resume." Lucian's eyes hardened. The gold shot toward the orb. Maverin's coin rang so loud my teeth hurt. I moved without standing. It was less heroic than wounded. Raccoon, desperate, but it moved me. My palm hit the platform crack where black water pulsed beneath the boards, and I shoved every channel I had into that ugly little boundary. Aelia's first path, Maverin's opening, Orin's witness claim, Edrin's threshold. The gold beam hit the place where the orb had been, but the orb was no longer only above the platform. For 1 second, it existed in every threshold that had witnessed the stolen beginnings, the station gate, the platform edge, the old service door, the file drawer, the well rim, the yellow line where people had left home and prayed not to break. The beam passed through empty air. The iron bench orb reappeared above the well, brighter now. Edrin's voice laughed inside my bones. "Better. Still sloppy." "Everyone's a critic," I gasped. The old carved traveler names flared black gold along the beams. Then the stolen names answered. They were witnesses, not ghosts or full lives. Evan Caldwell, Henry Ashford, Maribel Torres, Jonah Pike, hundreds more from the files, thousands from the pools. People who had never known what was taken from them, whose first roads had been harvested before they could even hate the thief. Mira placed her bloodied hand over her brother's projected name. "Eyewitness," she said. Sienna raised the evidence pouch. "Ashford Council witnesses." One injured guard dragged himself upright and pressed his hand to a glowing traveler name carved into a post. "Eyewitness." Then the iron bench circle above us widened. The station was not full of a crowd, but it felt crowded anyway. The weight of unseen names pressed into the air until Lucian's golden seals began to crack. The bench voice spoke. "Recovered worship established. Historical continuity established. Victim witness standing provisionally recognized. Golden Dominion suppression and harvest records entered. Lucian's expression sharpened. Provisionally. Sienna snapped. Enough to block immediate execution. The station shook. The faceless woman above the platform lifted her head. Her eyes were still dark, incomplete outlines, but now they were looking. Really looking. Aelia's voice moved through the well, through me, through the names. I was not gone. The second seal beneath platform B turned. At first, it fought like a rusted lock. Golden cracks tried to pin it shut. Black water surged around the edges. Old rails screamed as if the whole station remembered every departure at once. I crawled forward, dragging one useless wrist behind me. What do you need? I whispered. Aelia answered, weaker than I wanted and stronger than she had ever been. Recognition. I laughed once, breathless and ugly. The one thing I'm accidentally good at causing. I raised my head toward the iron bench circle, the victim names, Mira, Sienna, the broken guards, Lucian, and the hidden well listening beneath us. I recognize Aelia of the first step, I said. She is neither a surrendered remnant nor a nursery error, and she was never a broken footnote in Orion's pretty gold ledger. The air tightened. Lucian stepped forward. Dorian. That was the first time he sounded like he wanted me to stop, so obviously I kept going. I recognize the mother who opened roads. The first path before the reward, the beginning before gold. The station cracked open with black gold light. The second seal shattered. It did not explode. It shattered like a lock, finally admitting it had lost the argument. Golden containment lines across the station snapped one by one. The exit gate burst open. The tunnel mouth went dark. The service door slammed wide. Every trap threshold took one breath of freedom. Lucian stepped back again. This time everyone saw it. The iron bench voice rang across platform B. Second seal fracture verified. The iron bench voice continued. Colder now. Immediate mark examination suspended. Dominion custody claim at this site denied pending full hearing. Railway archive evidence preserved under iron bench seal. Above the well, the faceless woman's silhouette sharpened. Her eyes opened fully, dark and ancient, but the place where her true name should have been remained blank. A wound made of missing letters. Then the system display burned across the air. Rank 6 pathway, incomplete. Requirement, 3 seals fractured. Current seals fractured, 2. Divinity rank, 5 maintained. I stared at it. Maintained, I wheezed. Love being told I did not level up after almost getting premium murdered. Mira choked out something that might have been a laugh and might have been a sob. Sienna did not laugh, she was staring at Lucian. So, she said, voice cold, will the Golden Dominion be continuing its immediate execution attempt in front of the iron bench? Lucian looked from the cracked seal to the orb to me. For a moment, the veteran rank 5 apostle of the Golden Dominion looked almost annoyed. He looked less defeated than annoyed. That was terrifying in its own special way. You have not won, he said. I pushed myself up enough to sit against a broken bench. I noticed. Winning usually hurts less. Lucian adjusted one glove. You bought recognition, you bought delay, you bought witnesses. His eyes found mine. But you also rang bells you do not understand. Gold light opened behind him, forming a clean door where no door had been. Edrin hissed inside my mark. Stolen threshold. Lucian stepped backward into it. Enjoy your little court, Dorian West. The Dominion will answer with a vessel worthy of the gold you insult. The golden door shut. The station exhaled. For 1 second I thought that was the end of the immediate nightmare. Then Aelia's well turned gold. The color was pure gold, arrogant, expensive gold. Every mark under my skin recoiled. Mira stumbled back. Sienna raised her weapon at the well like she was going to shoot a reflection, which honestly matched my emotional state. The iron bench orb buzzed. Unauthorized national offering, well linkage detected. My stomach dropped. Across the station floor, every puddle of black water became a mirror. The railway well, Aelia's chapel well miles away, and thousands of Golden Dominion offering wells across the country linked into one impossible broadcast. A voice filled the station. The voice was neither Lucian's nor human. It was warm as coin, smooth as a signed contract, huge enough that my bones wanted to kneel before my brain could tell them absolutely not. Orion Drake. Citizens of this nation, the god's voice said, a criminal distortion of fortune has been exposed. My mouth went dry. The golden water showed a cathedral I had only seen in novel descriptions. Golden pillars, a massive offering, well-shaped like a sunken crown. Priests in white and gold standing around a circle filled with stolen light. And at the center knelt a young man. Dark hair, clean profile, calm face. Carter Blaine. My lungs stopped working. The original protagonist, the golden boy who was supposed to rise later. Much later. After trials, arcs, rivals, setbacks, the whole heroic buffet, now he knelt inside a ritual circle while streams of light poured into him from every linked well. That light was beginnings, not simple gold. I could see them now because Aelia had taught my eyes what theft looked like. First acceptances, first recoveries, first contracts, first inventions, first escapes, first tiny impossible turns of fate, stripped from countless people and poured into one body like fuel. Aelia whispered, horrified. That power is cut from the road. Carter's back arched. The golden well behind him screamed. A system display formed above his head. Golden vessel candidate. Artificial divinity stabilization. Rank ascension in progress. I tried to stand. My legs refused. Carter, I whispered. Mira looked at me. You know him? I swallowed the wrong answer. The truth would have been he was supposed to be the hero. What I said was, he was on the candidate board. Orion's voice continued, louder now. Dorian West, bearer of unlawful beginnings, corrupter of divine succession, enemy of rightful prosperity. The golden broadcast turned away from the nation and toward me. Carter Blaine opened his eyes. They were gold. But behind them, for one flicker, I could not tell whether the person looking at me was Carter, Orion, or something trapped between them. The display changed. Divinity rank, updated, rank 5. Classification, golden vessel candidate. Target assignment. Dorian West. The third seal inside my mark slammed shut so hard I screamed. It locked instead of cracking or hiding. A black system alert burned across the golden reflection. Golden vessel awakened. Target, Dorian West. Third seal location, locked. Carter's golden eyes stayed fixed on mine through the well. And the novel's intended hero smiled.